Hello and welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I'm Brad, joined as always by Matt and Shad. Tonight we're going to be doing a kind of a memorial show for Gran Hamada. We will be finishing our stables tournament from last week, and we'll be having some awful discourse about ring sizes and a few other odds and ends. But first, Shad does want to mention a charity for
Yeah.
the
So
Kentucky flooding.
yeah. So God, it's happened again. 2.5 years ago, we had a historic flood in East Kentucky, and guess what? It's happened again. Um, and so it's the area I grew up in. It's the area I wrestled in mainly. And basically, right after, well, like a week and a half after the last set of flooding came through, then a hurricane came into Florida, and everyone was like, "Oh, I'd rather be in Florida," and they took off and quit paying attention. So, um, I am advocating for this particular fundraiser because the guy that ran the last one um, took all of the proceeds, made a nonprofit out of it, and so it was all transparent. And then all of the proceeds he recorded, he proceeded to distribute to people in the community that really needed it and weren't getting any help. So he is a local dude. He does a good job, and it's a quality thing. So if you would be so inclined, I just threw tiny URL into the chat. If you'd be up for buying a quality shirt and helping some folks out, then I would consider that a kindness for you to consider it.
Okay, yeah, it's awful.
And you can tell I'm tired because I used consider twice in one sentence, like 3 words apart.
That's terrible. It happened so close together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna finish the tournament first because I'm killing time so I don't have to face down this stupid ring talk.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to get into ring size discourse. I don't remember the brackets because
Yeah, I was gonna kind of do
Do a recap.
recap.
I did it on a piece of paper, and as I just told Brad and Chad right before the show, like I had this and the notes for like the Gran Hamada stuff that we watched in a notebook, and I don't know what happened to it.
That's the worst.
It somehow disappeared in the course of the day, so I don't remember what the brackets are.
Okay, so in round 1, the NWO defeated Devastation Inc. The First Family, Jimmy Hart's First Family from Memphis, defeated Nexus. Bullet Club defeated Dungeon of Doom. Dangerous Alliance defeated the Corporate Ministry. That one was a more complicated talk. You go back to last week. The Hart Foundation defeated DX. The Heenan family defeated Undisputed Era. Bloodline defeated Authority. Horsemen defeated the Alliance. Then we went to the quarterfinals. The NWO defeated the First Family. Dangerous Alliance defeated the Bullet Club. Hart Foundation defeated the Heenan family. And the Horsemen defeated Bloodline. So that gives us semifinal matches of the NWO and Dangerous Alliance, and then the Hart Foundation and the Four Horsemen. So we're going to start us off here with the NWO and the Dangerous Alliance, which I would say, as far as like wrestling stable angles for me, are probably like the 2 greatest stables ever, in my opinion.
So,
Yeah.
they defined identity, defined membership. They had impact all up and down the card.
And
like,
I would say
they are more similar than I think they might appear at first blush.
Well, I think the biggest differentiation, and which is going to be, and where I argue for my vote though, is Dangerous Alliance. I think was a better creative endeavor because it did have a specific beginning, middle, and it had an end, unlike the NWO.
By the way, one other similarity I forgot to mention: both stables opposed the charge led against them by the one and only Sting.
Thanks.
So
Sting.
they're in good
Yeah.
they're in good company.
this is tough because Dangerous Alliance might be. Again, I'm very sentimental because when I started watching wrestling as a child, way back in mid 1992, this was the Dangerous Alliance angle was wrapping up. Um, so I have a love of they may be my favorite stable of all time because, but they're also like it's like falling in love with your first, it's your first love, your first girlfriend, your first boyfriend, whatever, your first partner, like
Yeah.
your first love. It's like they always hold a special place. It's like that. Dangerous Alliance is probably the first stable I ever knew, was aware of. Now they also are like a great stable and of world class guys, like guys who had been world champions before. If they weren't world champions, then they like well, really Sabisco, but guys who've been multi-time champions, multiple different promotions. So uh, I love them, but the NWO is obviously iconic, and they basically, at least the original ones, Hall and Nash and Hogan basically led to the second boom period, second major boom
Yeah.
period in wrestling. So it's like, what do I choose? Like personal favorites versus someone,
I
a group that had such a huge impact.
I feel like this is like I feel like what this it would be like comparing to is the big summer blockbuster that maybe had like a questionable ending to it that left you a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth versus like a lesser known like awesome like art house film that maybe got like some mainstream attention.
See, I look at this and I can absolutely appreciate um, both sides of the coin on it. I can also appreciate what Brad is saying in that it did not wear itself out by hanging around too long and it had a clear, defined end. But here's the problem. Not only did the NWO kick off the first major boom period, but we're talking about a stable that, you know, for all everyone talks about how great the Attitude Era was, secret. Um,
It's not good.
none of this
It's
would
not
have
good.
happened.
No one
It's
that goes
not.
back, no one that goes back and actually watches that crap has a good thing to say about it.
Yeah.
People,
With
I
all of
think,
that, though, that all started because of the NWO. To have Hall and Nash, like all the pieces that go into it, Hall and Nash, you know, jump ship, and then there's the up in the air question about whether or not, like, what's going on there, and the fact that it's Hogan turning heel to join with them, like all of this stuff together, all the pieces to it, and all of that, man, I appreciate the Dangerous Alliance. I appreciate everybody who's in the Dangerous Alliance. I appreciate the story of the Dangerous Alliance. But the problem is that the the biggest thing for the Dangerous Alliance is that it had a clear arc. The biggest thing for the NWO is that it was a cultural touchstone. Like this, when people talk about, you know, cultural penetration, is like the NWO didn't just culturally penetrate; it culturally impregnated. So, Matt, I know that's a weird way of putting it, but tell me I'm wrong. You know,
You'll just see some
um,
rando. You still see some rando like live stream that's not even about wrestling, and someone will have an NWO shirt
yeah,
on.
and you know,
Even
this
even
pulled
more
in.
so, even more so than like Austin shirts. Like the one shirt I think that did survive that era of wrestling is like the NWO shirt.
And this is a stable that had, like, Dennis Rodman was on the Chicago Bulls when they were doing their second three-peat, and here's Rodman rolling in with them, and all that sort of stuff. Look, I appreciate the Dangerous Alliance. I really like the Dangerous Alliance. But when I stack the strengths up against each other, to me, the NWO comes out ahead.
I wonder if I still have my. I had it's probably my favorite wrestling shirt I ever had. The red wolf pack shirt with like the wolf on the front and then the NWO on the back is probably my favorite wrestling shirt I've ever owned. Probably second would be the Monday Night Jericho with the Nitro logo. It's probably my second favorite.
uh, I will say, Shad, a credit against a kind of a knock against the NWO is at one, it went way too long.
It killed the
Oh
company.
yeah.
It did. Well, multiple things killed the company, but yes, the people involved contributed to it. The more you actually hear about that period of it, like
It's
basically
amazing that it worked. Like that they actually pulled it off for a
well,
year and a
it
half
did, but
without fucking it up.
if you hear more, just basically the moment like Hogan came, it's like I'm really shocked that this didn't run to the rails, like right, just driven right into the ground. But even before the NWO even started, because
Yeah.
the contract that and Meltzer in recent times, because people obviously because they're disingenuous tried to be like, oh, Meltzer's giving Okada like millions of dollars, Osprey like he gave Swerve how much money, and it's like you can't even compare. And Dave Meltzer has tried to say before, it's like you have no idea like what they did for Hogan, and comparatively, like especially with cost inflation, it's like you have no idea the contract that they signed with Hogan. It was like no person in their sane mind would have been like, pick the hottest right now in the WWE. If all of a sudden Roman's like, I'm kind of done with this place, I'm going to go to AEW. Like, if Tony Khan will pay me, like the biggest star in WWE, Tony Khan, even if he gave like Roman, I'll give you like $5 million a year. Like, it would still not be as ridiculous.
There was a
as all they
point.
gave Hogan.
There was a point. I don't remember how it worked exactly. We've talked about it before, but there was a point in his contract that he like if some number of like buy rate like triggered, they actually started losing money.
Yeah,
if they
because
went
they
over
had to pay him a percentage.
Yeah, and it got like if they crossed the threshold, it was actually worse for them than doing slightly worse because he started getting like a bigger chunk.
Yeah.
I think it didn't go off the rails because honestly, like I'm gonna be super honest here. He doesn't get enough credit. I honestly think he did not go off the rails, and it worked for as long as it did because Scott Hall was there and like not a total alcoholic yet. Because like he came up with the Crow gimmick. I think he did a lot of like talking Hogan down and be like, no, you need to this is good for business. Like if you hear little subtle talks, like even the Crow thing, everyone, I think even Sting says, yeah, Scott Hall was like, yeah,
Scott Hall told him to watch the movie.
Yeah. If you've ever heard Scott Hall like on Austin's podcast back in the day, it's obviously a few years back because unfortunately Scott Hall is no longer with us, but if you heard him talk, like Scott Hall had many flaws and many faults, but when he was sober, like the guy had a really good wrestling mind and was like he was, as they say, a student of the game. Like he knew wrestling, so yeah, he could have got to make it work. I'm digressing a little bit. It did go too long, and there's a lot of big egos in play. But another part was like there's a couple of problems. Like they did basically they were cooler than the actual company they're supposed to be rebelling against, so they became almost like the de facto faces in this.
Yeah,
which is not good for the long-term health of your company. But they also add a bunch of scrubs. It's like, should Horace Hogan, God love him, should he ever have been part, or Vincent,
or having Dusty Rhodes join, like was really kind of just like nothing against Dusty, but like he shouldn't be in that kind of group. But it shows you like to the depths it went to.
See, I was not upset about Vincent being part of it because every group like that needs a butt monkey.
Well, they needed someone to make sure the beers were cold. So I mean, he makes sense.
And let's be honest for a second. Vincent got paid bukus of money to basically just be on TV and not do anything for years.
I mean, he was good at being a bodyguard though. Like I think people forget that. I think it was fine. Like when they had I think Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton were fine additions. Like I don't think they watered it down.
It did get too big.
Waltman was fine. I think when you started getting into like Scott Steiner, when like Muda and Chono. Well, I think Chono was fine because it having an international wing I thought was kind of like it was an interesting like wrinkle to it.
Yeah.
And NWO's thing was fine.
I mean, it was NWO Sting was basically an attempted psyop, and then it's like, well, when that's not working, it's like, fine, we'll just keep doing it though,
Yeah.
right? Like the thing that bothers me, I hated the NWO at the time. Like, I hated them, and then the thing that bugs me about them more recently is the preponderance of cool heels. It's like, no, knock that shit off. I do not want to see cool heels. Heels are not supposed to be cool. You want an anti-hero face? Sure. But don't give me cool heels because it cuts the nuts off of everybody else.
The problem is, though, people, it did proliferate that, but people miss the point of, like, the NWO is, yes, they were cool heels, but the second the odds were even, they turned into the biggest bitches ever.
But people forget about that.
Well, and that's partly a criticism I have of the Bloodline, although it's worse because the WWE actively presented the image as like, oh, look at Roman, such a dominating champion, when the story of Roman's super ass long title reign was that he presented as like, I'm the tribal chief, like I'm the best like ever, like I'm the big dog, like everything. And he was not a chicken shit heel, but basically he had to cheat to win in every match he had.
He was a bitch.
I feel like
oh, he's so dominant. It's like, no, like every match he has to have 50 run-ins and to help him win. Every match.
I wonder if I would be more like, if I would like the Bloodline better if the announcers had like announced with reality, like,
hated it.
Yeah, like if they'd been like, like, you know, like if you know, Michael Cole is like, oh, like of course they're cheating again because they always cheat for Roman, and you know,
yeah,
or you know, bitch, like, you know, he could be so dominant, but he always takes like the shortcuts, like, because like when I think back on the like some of the Roman stuff, I'm like, you know, like if I completely take the commentary out, like it got predictable like the NWO, but I think I would hate it less when they're just not like sucking him off 24/7. And it just doesn't go with like what's on your screen. It's like you're being gaslit in real time.
But that goes into like they made everyone in the Bloodline basically be like kind of like the cool heels, and people now like they obsess with Roman to the point where we talked about this in the show multiple times. I feel like you have done Cody's title reign, which is coming up on a year. Like you've done it a disservice because like. It's almost like he's an afterthought. People, as soon as Roman came back, it was like, oh, Roman's a star. And it's like, yeah, that's what you've done for like the last 3-4 years. Like, you haven't, I mean, and Cody's not a star, but it's like comparatively, it's like, I feel, no, Roman's, although what's interesting, and again, I know internet's not real life, Twitter's not real life, but I've actually seen recently people complaining, and not just like AEW fans, whatever, like actual WWE fans being like, what the hell is this build to WrestleMania? I hate it. And they're blaming it on like, oh, like all these matchups like we could be seeing. Like we could get Cody versus Punk, like, you know, Punk versus Seth, whatever. And everyone's like, oh, we gotta wait around for Roman to come back and do whatever with Roman. Like people are complaining about Roman, like legitimately. And I'm like, and now it's not a lot of voices, but I'm like, maybe people finally are getting wise to the fact that he is, I don't even know if it's fair to even call him a part-timer now. Like he's got a great gig. I'm sure they pay him multi-million dollars to basically show up every third month.
Yeah.
It's
for like 4 or 5 weeks, then fuck off again.
It's been the Mania problem for like a decade though. It's kind of when I started hating Mania around 2012 or 2013. Is like when it was like the third year in a row where I was kind of like enjoying what the WWE was doing, and then the Rumble would hit, and it was like, oh yeah, it's Mania season, so everything I was enjoying has to come to a screeching halt so they can do like the Mania programs that like exist in their own like vacuum. So that's kind of when I started to dislike Mania a lot, because like it didn't fit, like, because when we were younger, I think people forget this, but like Mania used to be like the Super Bowl or like the championship game of like a sport. That's like where kind of the year wrapped up.
Yeah.
and they kind of capped off a lot of the programs. And then you got like kind of the new year started after that, and that kind of changed in the tens, where like Mania turned into like, oh, this is when the real stars come back to get their paydays and stuff that you haven't seen all year. And those guys we spent all year building, and you spent all that time with, oh yeah, we're just gonna squash them like bugs for the real stars.
Yeah.
The Mania was the one event that wasn't for their loyal fans, and it's just like, well,
Yeah, it's like oh, you've been enjoying like that CM Punk world title reign for the last year and a half. Oh yeah, Rock's just gonna squish him like a bug and make him look like a total chump because we need to do something with the Rock. Like that's when I started to like resent Mania a lot. So I think people maybe voicing that displeasure are having that moment with it where they're like, wait a minute, like I've just spent the last year investing in this stuff and now it's just out the door.
Yeah, it's like, why should I care?
Yeah. So I am going to be I am going to be a contrarian here and vote for the Dangerous Alliance just because I think that was like it was one of the few angles where they got the stable breaking apart right.
Yeah. Chad, what do you say?
I'm saying the NWO. It's just too big for me to discount.
That makes me the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
I want to be contrarian because, again, get this whole story about how much I love the Dangerous Alliance, but I think for historical reasons, for impact on the business, I'll choose the NWO.
Okay.
Like they're too big. Like
I don't think it matters who's winning this round anyway. Because...
yo.
Okay.
You here to see WCW? Like that's kind of like that's going like the like you automatically just that line. It's like it's like shit. Like WCW.
You know the funniest part to me was that I think the last time they did the Sturgis event, they're like, "Are you here to see WCW or the NWO or Goldberg?" And the guys went ballistic for Goldberg, and I'm like, "You just got chumped out on your own promo."
Okay, so our other semifinal here is the Hart Foundation for the Horsemen. So, I mean, this one, we talked a lot about the Hart Foundation and the in-ring that they brought to WWF in '97 and how they were kind of a catalyst of bringing them back from the brink of doom. But man, especially like the 85, 86 Horsemen, like 86 is like a banner year of wrestling because of the Horsemen. Like they are just like War Games was invented because of them. Like I think probably like one of their, if we count JCP and WCW as the same thing, like probably their best year ever as far as like financial success and creative success is because of the Horsemen. So like for me, this one's like a no-brainer. It's the Four Horsemen.
I'll co-sign on that. It's the Four Horsemen. Like again, Horsemen were around in some form for basically over a decade. So when you're not having the original lineups of stuff, like, and you shouldn't if you're going to be around that long, like you shouldn't. There's got to be iterations of it that it's like there are obviously some that are better than others. Like, and very few people have positive
Paul
things to say
Roma.
about the Paul Roma era.
I knew. You said very few people. I was like, he's going to talk about Paul Roma.
He's not the worst wrestler. I would say like he might be the worst horseman, but
No, he is. I will die on the grave that Mongo was not a bad horseman. Like he wasn't a great wrestler.
Mongo was not. Mongo was actually not bad at all.
No, I mean
Mongo was a great brute for that group.
Yeah, he served a purpose, and he actually fulfilled that role
and
fairly
decently.
He was
he was
fine.
He was a better horseman than Dean Malenko. I'm not talking about in-ring here. I am talking about.
I think I know what you're saying. He fit kind of better with like the aesthetic.
He repped better.
Yeah, the aesthetic, the attitude, like. When I talk about being a horseman, it is a lifestyle, it is like a presentation, and I think like when I say Mongo wasn't a bad horseman, it has nothing to do with his wrestling. It is Mongo fit the persona of a horseman really well. Like he's a guy like, oh yeah, Ric Flair and Arn Anderson would totally hang out and party with that guy after the shows. And he's probably an animal after the shows too.
Okay, so I'm going to start by making a salient point, and then I'm going to make a joke. They did this buildup of Malenko being the catalyst to bring the Horsemen back, which I thought was really cool. They go through, they do this whole thing, but the problem is, once they brought the Horsemen back, you could tell Dean was never the same after he had to go through the Horseman initiation and see Ric Flair's penis. So, you know, you party with Flair, what ends up happening? He starts wearing the robe and nothing else. And I think Tony Schiavone might have said once, he said, I've probably seen Ric Flair's more than I've seen my own.
I think like when you signed with WCW, like before you signed the contracts, just like so you know, like Flair get in here and he just like flopped it out on the table. It's like, you still want to sign?
He just woos around the room
and then if you were like,
it's written into the contract. Like,
yeah.
I have a question about line like 58.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean
like,
by that? Oh my
mean,
god.
Like, and then if you have hesitation, Flair's like, what are you, big leaguing me? Woo.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
all right. Yes.
that's
a
like
joke
all over
about
the...
something.
Yeah.
That's a joke about something distasteful, but look, there is not a full iteration of the Horsemen that I hate on, and they had different permutations as you went, and there's different, you know, you had different brutes at different times. You had Sid at one point. Yes, I saw that, Vectron. You had Sid. You had a Mongo. You know, look, you had Arn and Flair.
Barry Windham.
Windham, yeah.
Sting was for a while.
Luger.
Luger.
So
I think Butch Reed was supposed to be, and then JJ left, because you watch like early '89, like JJ is still managing them, and he's managing like Butch on the side, and then they do like the whole, he sells the contracts to Hiro Matsuda, and it kind of gets all screwed up. But I kind of was like, oh man, like Butch Reed as a Horseman would have been kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So look, the Hart Foundation was this cohesive unit with members that obviously had chemistry with each other, and this united presentation. That's all very true. And it was what, 2 years?
A year and a half, maybe.
Year and a half, 2 years, as opposed to years of different, I would say, equitable permutations of the Horsemen. Because, I mean, you want to compare members, we could do that too, but let's not, because, I don't want to speak ill of Jim Neidhart. It's just, the Hart Foundation was like a shorter run, bigger. That's not even
It wasn't.
Hart Foundation just not going to match up to it.
And I would say Horsemen have like, like you said, the cultural penetration. I mean, our friend Justin from Canada just like posted a picture of like the Charlotte, Texas Roadhouse with like a Ric Flair picture in it. And the sad thing is, like, He didn't say where it was, and I saw the armadillo. I'm like, oh, that's Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah.
And then Shad and I are immediately like, it was more fun when you could throw the peanut shells on the floor.
Yeah. Those poor floor sweepers losing their jobs, that is just wrong.
And I will die on the hill that Texas Roadhouse is better than Longhorn. By a lot. And Logan's Roadhouse sucks.
Logan's didn't used to suck. That was the thing.
I've never been to Logan's. I've been to Texas Roadhouse and Texas Longhorn. I think Texas Longhorn is owned by the Darden Group, right? So
it's the same people that have
Red
Olive
Lobster.
Garden.
Olive Garden.
They don't have.
Yeah.
They got rid of Red Lobster a long time ago.
They did. They used to.
Red Lobster's like two ownership groups from there. They're owned by like They're owned by whoever. They're owned by whoever owns the fish sticks. It's not
Gordon's
Kanye
Fish
West.
Room.
Not Kanye West, but
Damn it, Brad, you cut me off.
The Kanye West was like the.
Let's see what fish sticks are delicious and flaky. What do I have? Lyrical genius, generational talent. I don't know what they have in common.
Aren't they? They're owned by like an Asian company, right? Like.
yeah, so their recent one. Well, so they got rid of them because in the like around the 2008 recession, they were tanking their whole company single-handedly. And they were doing better for a while, but now they've kind of started going downhill again. And they tried, like 3 years ago, they tried this all-you-can-eat shrimp gimmick to get people through the doors, and they lost millions of dollars. Like literally, I think they lost $15 million.
I heard a conspiracy theory though about that. Is that the parent company that owns them? It was like I won't say like it's not. Using the term locally sourced, it's not really what it means. Like locally sourced obviously would be like, I got it from the neighborhood, from the area that the Red Lobster's in. I mean, like I think the rumor that I heard was that they owned the companies that, like harvested the shrimp, like farmed the shrimp.
Oh, okay.
Or fished the shrimp. So if they lost money, it's more like they're just putting their own debt up. They're putting debt, but it's also like you're maybe double dipping because it's like you own these companies. It's just like, oh, we lost all this money on the shrimp, and it's like maybe you did, but it's also like it's from your company. I don't know if that's true. That's the rumor I heard. They're still chugging.
There's a good.
My family and I, we had Red Lobster probably like month ago, and it was tasty. Like it's fine. The Cheddar Bay biscuits are great.
You can get the mix for those, and they're better if you do them at home.
We can't go anymore.
Why?
We can't go anymore because there is something that they run through the flyer that my wife is allergic to. And I mean allergic like she is bent over praying at the porcelain altar all night allergic to.
A shellfish allergy?
We didn't think so, but there's something.
It might be.
And so that's we had 2 or 3 trips, and after every time, like that night, sick as a dog. So it's just like, well, we just don't go to Red Lobster anymore. And but I'm more of a fan of the get 2 Cheddar Bay biscuits, go to Chick-fil-A, get a fried chicken sandwich fillet, and put it between the Cheddar Bay biscuits.
You don't even have to do that. You can literally go to the store and there's a Cheddar Bay biscuit mix that tastes better because there's not like a mountain of salt in it. You just add some water, stir it up, and put it in the oven for like 15 minutes, and they're delicious.
Have you guys been to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse?
No, it's expensive.
Okay. It is a little expensive. Most steak places are expensive, but that's also owned by the Darden Group apparently. I've been before, I went like last year. But Yard House have you been to Yard House? Like Yard House I like. Oh, Yard House is notable because that's like one of the places that you can get the yard of beer, which is like it's like a beer tower almost, but it's like personal. It's like a big thing. Who knows how many ounces? Probably at least like 64 ounces. It's big. And they have like one of those places like, oh, we have 100 beers like on tap. But otherwise it's just like American food. It's fine.
There's a good YouTube channel called The Company Guy, and he does like a lot of these videos about.
It is Brad. I'm with you. I like that channel, but if you look for it, it is just Company Man. Company Man is a different thing.
Okay, Company Man. Sorry. So what he does is he talks about some companies like why they've stayed successful, but like a good one he did. He talks about how Kmart went downhill and like the blue light special, but he'll focus on what he thinks he did wrong, how they kind of messed up, or my favorite is when because they just did this to Asmodee, where they just buy a company with its own debt or saddle it with all the debt, and then they can't make their interest payments, and they just collapse.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to Toys R Us is they did a leveraged buyout, so they essentially bought Toys R Us with debt, and then it killed the company.
And then piled it on there, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, man, I didn't used to be this way, but the older I get, the more I hate venture capitalists, and I'm not on the eat the rich bandwagon, but I'm understanding why people are ordering from that menu. It's kind of pissing me off.
Well, the problem with a lot of those is like they don't care about long term. They're usually just trying to like pump and dump something to make more money.
Yeah.
That's where you get into trouble. Like, because there's some companies that have like really saved like some struggling entities with like good.
Well, like, so what do? They roll in and they buy like the Cadbury cream company, and then they change the formulation in Cadbury cream eggs, and it sucks now.
Yeah.
Why'd they do that? Oh, it's cheaper to do this now. Guess what? You're going to sell less cream eggs because they suck.
But sometimes you get like they're not venture capitalists, but like people that do it right. Sometimes they'll come in and buy a company. It's like, wow, you're using an IBM from like 1992. Like let's get you on a computer that's modern, or hey, like you can do this cheaper or better, or hey, let's use some better quality. Like there's been some buyouts like that have actually like benefited companies a lot. I also think too, the further you get away from like the original creator, like and you lose that passion, like KFC is a great example. Like they had to in the 70s they had to pay off the Colonel because he was bitching about the food and like said the gravy was disgusting.
I love that story because he would go into KFC's in full regalia, order food, and then sit there and rant about how awful it was in the restaurant and compare the gravy to wallpaper paste and stuff like that. That's hysterical to me. For what it's worth, there's also another channel that I like that's called The Fat Electrician, who has done breakdown. He usually does U.S. military history stuff, but he's done them on like Arizona tea and stuff like that. And he's like, and so what does this guy do? The guy with Arizona tea is whenever they're like, well, you can't keep it at the price point you want to keep it at and keep things the way they are. Does he downsize? No. Does he change stuff? No. He goes, let's use less aluminum in the cans. Then we can do it that way. And he refused to sell it. He's just like, nope, Nope, not going to sell it. You know what I get to do? I get to come to work every day and have lunch with my two sons who also work here, and we get to be successful and happy. And it's just like, awesome. So, that's a long way to talk about the Four Horsemen, by the way.
So then our final matchup, I don't think it's a real surprise, is the NWO versus the Four Horsemen. Like, I'm sorry on this one. Like, to me, the Four Horsemen's a no-brainer over the NWO. They're just the 80s. They're just like the 80s boom stable. And the NWO is like the 90s boom stable. I just feel like the Horsemen did not have the negatives that the NWO had.
I think I would agree. I'm trying to articulate in the best way. They probably have more of the breakout cultural than the NWO, and people might think like that's crazy. Like NWO is like actually popular in the broader culture at the time period. But it's like yes, but I mean it may be more centered around Ric Flair, but you know there are professional athletes now who will cut like a Ric Flair promo. You know that's clearly like they're not doing it his style. Like they're clearly like referencing. You know, I've seen athletes in recent years be like, you know, quoting the infamous Ric Flair as a Horseman speech where it's like, I'm having a hard time keeping these Gators down. Like, they'll quote that like verbatim, and they'll do all that with Ric Flair, and yeah, it's very like Ric Flair centered, but I mean, it's still like that's still part of like the Horseman.
That's because
whereas no one outside of wrestling now talks about the NWO, like no one.
But
Like,
the thing with Flair is, I think in the era that was big, like. Especially if you were like a black person, like there was not like a character like that because someone explained why he's so popular like in the black community. It's because he's gangster.
Ric Flair always had drip.
Yeah, he's got the bling, he's got the suits, he's got the ladies and stuff. So that's like why that's why he's so popular because like that was the kind of like a cultural touchstone at the time. Like, I don't know if he was intentionally tapping into that, but like that's kind of like, and I mean everyone from that era, like people that you don't even hear talk about wrestling, like know their like Flairisms.
Yeah.
And
So
Flair probably didn't get that from nothing. Like he probably, aped a bit from like Gorgeous George from back in the day.
I would think
Not
he,
exactly. Well, he probably aped it more from like what Nature Boy,
Buddy Rogers.
Buddy Rogers,
Yeah, yeah.
with a touch of like
Uh,
70s like gangster films and stuff, I think.
yeah. But yeah, it kind of a lot of this does also go back to like Gorgeous George. Because I mean, Muhammad Ali, like Gorgeous George is like a huge inspiration from Muhammad Ali. Like Muhammad Ali, obviously, arguably the best boxer of all time, one of the best. But why was he so? Why did he get as big as he did? Not just on talent, like that. That was alone. But why did he become like the cultural icon? Because the guy was smart, and it's like he basically was the equivalent of like a pro wrestler in the sense that it's like I'm gonna market myself as like I'm gonna come out with this very braggadocious personality. I'm gonna like be a charismatic. I'm gonna like sing song stuff like sometimes, and it's like he got so over doing that. If you give it a larger than life personality, and part of that is just like I'm gonna take the larger than life aspects of some of these pro wrestlers and hype it up, turn it up to like 20.
It's funny when you watch like listen to his like trash talking, because it's funny, like I sometimes I watched some of it recently, like, man, like we're so soft as a society, like the pearl clutching over stuff he used to say that like that would draw houses and stuff, like the pearl clutching today would just be off the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ali himself said that he went and watched Gorgeous George do stuff at the arena in Louisville, and he was like, more people want to see you. More people will want to. They'll keep coming back to see you get beat over and over and over again. So the dude understood being a heel. He just also happened to be, the greatest. So. So I had an interesting similarity between these two also strike me, in that the lead figure for both of these groups have also had a ignominious fall from grace, so can't really hold that on over one or the other. So that's out.
I mean,
but,
I'll say like they both have had a fall from grace, but Hogan is not like a walking embarrassment like Flair is currently.
No, Hogan's a pretty big walking embarrassment. Hogan walks out on Raw, the first Raw on Netflix, and the entire arena is like, "Oh, you go to hell!" Like that's
different.
embarrassing
That's different.
as shit.
I'm saying though, like Hogan can at least walk down the street without doing something to embarrass himself, because he's probably at least sober.
I'm torn because I think you're both right. Like Flair is an embarrassment because Flair is in his 70s now, and Richard Flair, however his real name is pronounced. That person, it's almost like Batman, Bruce Wayne. It's like Bruce Wayne has stopped being Bruce Wayne. He's Batman. Like Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Yeah.
Like the real man behind Ric Flair stopped existing a long time ago. He's just Ric Flair now, but you're in your 70s, like you can't be that guy, and
No.
it's not. It's past the point where it's like look. There could be some like
You have grandchildren, dude.
kind of drunken, lecherous old man kind of thing. Like there's to a certain level, like that could be cute if you're not gross and everything about it. But that we're way past that, and Flair's like way over the top. So it's like please just go away. Like look, we did a whole show on many years ago about the potential, I won't say sexual assault, but sexual pestery aspects of Flair, like that maybe with time can be forgiven or forgotten, really. So maybe like 20 years from now, like he's passed away, you could be like, oh, I'm a Ric Flair, like. But now it's like, can you just go away? Like, please. Hogan's a different level. Hogan, there's political things going on with him right now that would not make him popular. Uh, there's a whole other racial aspect of things that we talked at like one of the very first shows we did about how when he came back to the WWE, he gave one of those non-apologies apologies. It was really more like, well, I'm sorry that you all were upset by what I said, and not versus like, I'm sorry what I said. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you got offended. Like,
Yeah.
And if you actually research some of the things he actually did say, it's like, ooh, like, this isn't even like, oh, I slipped and said one word. It's like,
Yeah.
there's more than that, and the way you said it. It's not, this isn't even like, and because people have been canceled for this or tried to be canceled, it's not even like, oh, like I love this rap song. Let me do this rap song, and then you as a white person say like the N word because it's in the rap song, and you just like do it. You're singing. It's like you're not even trying to be offensive. It's just like, and you get canceled for that. It's not even that. It's like you said the word multiple times and in a horrible context.
This is
like
not a defense.
in unambiguous context.
This is not a defense of Hogan. I'm just pointing out. But, according to Teddy Long, he was called that by Ric Flair. And I will say, at least Hogan did not say that to a person of that ethnicity like Flair has been purported to do. I will say the difference between the two of them for me is a lot of Hogan's stuff is very unfortunate, and I wish he'd go away. But Hogan has not, done anything that, directly impacts my enjoyment of, watching a match of his. And Flair has started to encroach into...
Yeah,
there's getting to be a cloud over his when I see
a
him
little
on my
bit.
screen.
I kind of see that. I think for me, maybe this is kind of going what you're saying, Brad, is that Hogan, when the camera's on and it's like you're gonna be on Raw, it's like you're doing the Hogan character, but outside of that, and if he shows up at like the Republican convention, he's Hulk Hogan the character, but otherwise he's Terry Bollea. Like he's playing a character. He's not like that all the time.
Yeah.
But I'll also say this, like, this is not a defense because it's 2025, you should know better, but you are dealing with men who were like 70, and times were different, so they may have grown up where that word or very insensitive things were said, and you just got ingrained in your head like, oh, it's okay to say this, and it's like it's not, and we all know that it's not, and it's 2025. It's not as if it's like it just changed. Like this has been verboten for good reason for most of your life, so you should get over all that. But it's like I understand. Like there are people who sometimes will say words or say insensitive things, and maybe it's just because, oh, this is how I was raised, so I don't know. But that word is different. This is more like when we were kids, all kids, like especially like in the 90s, you could say like, don't be like, don't be gay. And it's like, now you can't say that.
No.
And you understand things now. There's more understanding and people have progressed. But back in the day, it's like you would say that. Did you really, were you trying to be like, I'm going to be homophobic and bash gay people? Like, no. It's just a thing you said. You knew it was an insult, so you said it. Yeah. But I guess
my difference is, I guess my difference between the two is like it's separating the art from the artist. And Hogan has said some unfortunate things, but he's just said them. Flair has done things.
Well, yes, he has. And the other thing I'm going to say about Hogan that does impact me watching his stuff, and I'm not saying it's on the same level as Flair either, but knowing that Hulk Hogan flat out tried, and in some cases did, kill people's careers, pisses me off in ways that I have a hard time articulating. And it's like, the fact that he either tried to or did successfully stop some people from being promoted or absolutely cut their nuts off on TV like he did to Vader and that sort of thing. That also, I don't want to watch him. The Hulk Hogan Shawn Michaels SummerSlam match, I cackled was it SummerSlam? I think it was.
It was SummerSlam.
I cackled the whole way through of it because he's making a fool out of Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, good, make a fool out of Hulk Hogan. This was before any of that stuff came out. I didn't like it then. I can't deny his impact. I can't deny what he did. I can tell you I don't like him. I can tell you do not have a good opinion, and I don't have a good opinion of Flair either.
And
they both suck.
And I will say it's not defensive Hogan again, but certain Fed fans, God King Booker, I would say, has a more publicly unfortunate history with racial sensitivity than Hogan does.
Yeah, Hogan has said some things, and there's other stories out there that maybe he didn't. He's not. He still has some of those feelings. Like there was an allegation obviously last year that because he has a beer company now, or at least he's lended his name and likeness to it. But there was a social media influencer who claims like he hired her to promote the beer until he found out she was black. She got fired. Like, and it's like,
let me just put it this way: it probably happened. But if it's a social media influencer claiming it, I automatically don't believe them.
Fair enough. I think the problem is like with his background, it's like you can't be like, well, that can't have happened. It's like
I'm just saying, like, if the last year's taught me anything, is you can't believe anything a social media influencer claims when it comes to anything like that, and especially about sexual assault allegations, because they really love to lie about that too.
But I agree with you
to lie about that.
You just got off the Daniel Green train, didn't you, Brad?
I was thinking, I can't think of her name. There's been quite a few.
Don't worry about it. We'll get into it later.
There's been a lot.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Brad. It's like I don't know how many more examples people need of Paul not pushing African American talent, or really any non-white talent, but I don't know how much more that every certainly African American talent that goes to the main roster, like basically can just be like, I'm gonna sit in catering for most of my time. Like he's kind of killed the momentum and pushes of like Bianca Belair. He got a bona fide star in Jade Cargill that he's done like nothing really with. Like I don't know how much more people need to see
in ring stuff with the Mania main event with Booker T.
Don't forget the Nation of Domination skit.
Oh yeah, the blackface thing, which everybody knew wasn't cool at the time. Like nobody. God,
wasn't Waltman like really uncomfortable with doing that because Waltman is like.
Waltman is dangerously close to being a decent person.
Yeah.
When he's not in active addiction, I guess. But
he seems like he's been pretty good for a while. He's always interesting to talk about wrestling because he always has interest because he was like a real fan.
Mm-hmm. So I guess Horsemen have more longevity. The Bad Horseman stuff is in smaller doses and kind of rotated out more quickly. And even the quote-unquote worst Horseman revival wasn't bad. I mean, the Dean Malenko-Voldemort tag team was pretty badass, too. So
I wouldn't say that's the worst revival. The Paul Roma one is probably the worst revival if I had to pick one.
And that was Flair, Arn, Roma, and who was the fourth?
Oh. Did they even have?
I think there were just three.
Yeah, I think
I think that's part of the joke. I think that's part of the joke is they brought the Four Horsemen back without Four Horsemen.
Well, as opposed to having the NWO team, to having the Wolfpack Black and White and Wolfpack split, to having the reunification in the Finger Poke of Doom, to having NWO Silver 2000 edition with Jeff Jarrett and Bret Hart. Like, look, we compare the good is great on both of them. We compare the bad is bigger for the NWO stuff. And so by just sheer dearth of that, I'm leaning Horseman.
Yeah.
So Horsemen it is. Horsemen win our stable battle.
So, looking it up, like when he was announced, they had Oli. They brought Oli back as a manager briefly.
God.
That must have been so brief because I don't even remember Oli being part of it.
Hang on, let me do this properly. Let me do my only impression.
Was that was that Jim Cornette that said he didn't even think orgasms brought Oli play?
Oli, yeah, the quote is, Oli's Oli, orgasms don't make him happy. It's just like, shit.
Cornette had one of my favorite ones because he was talking about when Tim Horner was helping him book Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and he's like, he couldn't even book the fart at the end of a meal at Taco Bell. So,
It's a shame that he went the grift route.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
so
speaking of grift route, how's that for a segue?
So my brain. So what? So okay. So there's been discourse because I hate the IWC now. It's so useless. But so they just had Grand Slam in Australia, and how much smaller? How much
AEW Grand Slam?
How much smaller was the ring? Was it like? Did they go from like a 10 by 10 to like a 9.5 by 9?
It was it was I guess AEW. So it's the AEW Grand Slam. Let's like do a little bit of setup. AEW Grand Slam in Australia. People have been bitching about this show for I don't know how long. They moved it from like a venue to a different venue. And people were like, oh, mocking AEW, like, oh, you couldn't sell out, like if you had a big stadium. And then people being like, oh, you said it was a pay-per-view. It's like they never said it was a pay-per-view. AEW Grand Slam in the history of AEW for last like 5 years. It's always been like a TV show. One of the specials they do, like Winter is Coming, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's
Fighter
it's
Fest,
just
Fight for the Fallen.
It's branded, but it's TV.
Why would you care? Why would you care if you didn't have to pay $50 for a show?
I'll get to that because it's all disingenuous. But they mocked that. They mocked that it moved venues. Even Dave Meltzer, because Dave Meltzer, I get frustrated. It's back and forth with me. It's like a ping pong game because I get frustrated with Dave Meltzer because he clearly like understands and sees the light, but then he like puts blinders on and ignores it. But I remember he's been arguing with people on Twitter, or was a few weeks back, that it's like I can't tell you the number of times the WWE, the hottest, biggest company ever, has had to move shows because in even when they're hot, have had to move shows from like stadiums, whatever, because it's like it doesn't make sense. Like they're not selling like a 50,000 seat stadium.
No,
better move it to like a 15,000 seat building.
And let's be honest.
Sell most of his tickets.
Let's be honest. Like most companies would struggle to sell stadiums. I wish companies would stop trying to do that for like the prestige of it and just go with buildings they know they can sell, because throughout the course of wrestling history, hot promotions have struggled to fill up like baseball stadiums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like, I think it was a miscalculation on AEW's part. Like I think it was a big miscalculation, but I think going to a smaller venue and selling that out versus like.
And it was still their third biggest gate after the Wembley shows.
In terms of money,
yeah,
it absolutely was. They made like over $1 million gate. It was like 11,000 people, I think, in attendance. It was a very well-received show. People had a lot of fun. I guess they did. It wasn't just AEW Grand Slam Dynamite. Well, it was a special, like AEW Grand Slam. They also
ROH
filmed some stuff.
Global War, right?
Yeah, they filmed some Ring of Honor content there too. So they got some tapings out of it. They did the special. People were mocking that too because there was some, and this I don't even feel was their fault, but there was some issues there. It was supposed to air on TBS, but it didn't air like at a reasonable time. I think it aired at like 10:30 p.m.
Oh, because it was because of the
All-Star game.
No, it wasn't.
NBA.
No, it wasn't. It was the slam dunk competition, which
it was NBA stuff.
I honestly they should have done that differently, because in general the slam dunk competition takes fucking forever. So they were setting themselves up for failure. I saw
comments on Twitter from people who were watching it. They were pissed. They were like, this slam dunk. They were just saying like the slam dunk contest, like the slam dunk show this year was even like shit. It's like Get this fucking shit off my
No,
off
they
the
didn't
TV.
do anything.
Put
They didn't
AEW on
fucking.
it.
They didn't fucking do anything. Like they just did boring.
Yeah.
You know I would just put a bullet in the fucking All-Star Weekend because I'm sorry, you're never
well, I
gonna.
mean, it's leaving
You're never.
TBS, TNT, Max Discovery. It's leaving it. So
You're never gonna beat fucking little ass Spud Webb in the dunk contest in the '80s. Like, just
Yeah.
get over it. But no, like they didn't even do anything. And then they the new stars got disqualified for like cheating in the skills competition, and then the game itself just is fucking awful because
Yeah.
no one tries.
it was bad. But the showdown I don't think started till like 10:30 max. It didn't even start airing at a decent
No, 'cause
time,
the
which
dunk
is really
contest
upset about
takes
that.
forever.
Because it's a simulcast.
Yeah.
So
But what actually was not a simulcast, people were saying that Triller, formerly Fight TV, because they at least like I think globally maybe they air AEW content and they were airing it, but they were airing it like before 10:30. It was like start watching it at 9 or something, like still during prime time. Point is, there was some hiccups. Some of that wasn't AEW's fault, or it's excusable, or it's fine because it's like again they made the third highest gate,
They
11,000 people in attendance.
They shouldn't have. They should not have tied it to a big show like that. They should have not tied to the slam dunk competition. That was.
I agree.
That was.
I get
error.
the synergy. I get the synergy where it's like you're gonna have this this thing that a lot of people watch, so we'll have you right after that. It's like it doesn't help to start at like 10:30. Like if you're gonna have it early in the day, but it's like it's gonna roll over. Now you're just gonna watch our show at 8 p.m. It's like, or even 9 p.m. It's like I don't know.
That's the joke. No one watches the NBA anymore.
Yeah. Point is though, it was a good show. It was well received. People loved the matches. Got rave reviews from a lot of people.
it was a really good show.
I haven't seen it yet because as usual
I saw some clips.
far behind.
I saw
a month or more behind.
I saw some
TV.
clips, and I didn't even notice the ring being like smaller. Cause like I've seen like if you watch like I think it's still on CW. If you watch like the WoW show, like their ring is absurdly small. Like
Yeah.
I think I've sent you guys pictures before of it. Like it's like it has to be like an 8x8 or something like just stupidly small. And like you can tell the difference, like you can tell the difference like with the WWE ring just because they're so much bigger than like a standard ring. But like the standard run of rings, like I couldn't tell you the difference in like ring sizes unless it's like absurdly different. So
Yeah.
how
guess
different was it?
So AEW I think uses usually a 20x20 ring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This allegedly was 18x18.
So
Like 2 feet less.
Now, there's also one other thing that goes into this that I haven't seen anybody mention. AEW's ring is intentionally made so that the aprons are wider because guys like to do spots out there. So I don't know how much wider, but if the ring is that much wider, that means that the ropes are going to be further in, which means to me, it sure seems to me like those 2 feet may not be all that different in terms of the ropes.
Yeah.
But,
And most people, just about like far and away, the majority of AEW talent has been around a long time. Like they're outside of some people who are still young and probably haven't had that many matches in their belts, like Hook or like Nick Wayne. Like most of these people have been wrestling for years, so they've probably like had many matches on a very diverse set of rings.
Oh, even the young guys though. I mean, like even Nick Wayne. Like you don't think he hasn't worked like when he was in the early days hasn't worked like some janky ass ring that should be condemned. Like in his early days.
Look, I worked in different places, and I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert, but I'll pretend to be the closest thing we've got to it. Every show I went to, we'd get the ring set up beforehand. And then I would get in there and I would run the ropes and just kind of get a feel for it. Okay, 3 steps, For me, 3 steps gets me to the other side. Okay, 3 steps gets me other. 4 steps gets me corner to corner. Okay, and I'd just get a feel for it, and it would be fine. You know why? Because once you got enough practice to it, you can get a feel for it, decently quickly.
It largely shouldn't even be an issue because unless you're running the ropes or doing spots, like you should just make it work inside the ring. Like it shouldn't be that difficult. Point is,
the only times I've seen it be an issue is when people get in a WWE ring because it's so much bigger than anything.
24 by 24.
I also can see it being an issue like we talked about recently where JD, whatever was the Irish guy.
That was a problem.
McDonough. Okay,
McDonough, yeah. Where it's like the barriers or the ring announce table, whatever, is like oddly spaced or whatever.
Well,
you're doing stuff outside the ring and you're gonna like crash into a barricade at the announce table or something that you grievously injure yourself. Something like that.
I think I think them not giving enough space around the rings why Alley Catch broke her leg too. Because
you mentioned that. You mentioned that on the show. I agree. Like that's probably is part of the. I mean, if it was partly it's a freak accident, but yeah, like.
But if she had some more room to
work,
yeah.
You may be like, oh, I don't have a lot of room to maneuver. Like, let me try and land a certain way, or what have you. Then, unfortunately, happened. But
go ahead, Matt.
The discourse after, like the day or two after, endless people bitching about how like they couldn't handle the fact that the ring is like slightly smaller, which I haven't seen the show. Maybe when I watch now I know, so it's like maybe my eye would be like, oh, I'm visibly looking to see if it's smaller.
I
didn't know,
I've seen clips and I saw a couple matches knowing it was smaller, and I barely could tell the difference. And I've watched.
Maybe I would tell.
The whole damn show when it didn't make a difference.
I'm just saying,
be like,
what did these people do? Like, I don't understand. Like, what would these people do in territory days and watching like Memphis TV, where or Mid-South TV, where like the ring doesn't even have like an apron, and it's like even like the Memphis one that's like lower to the ground, like
if you watch like old like JCP and some of that other stuff. It's like the fucking announce table would be like literally like a table that you used to eat like lunch in, like back in the day in the old cafeteria, like right outside the ring, and you'd have like Tony Schiavone or Jim Ross or whatever like sitting right there. I remember I've seen many matches from like old Jim Crockett promotions or what have you, like NWA something, where guys would be doing spots like on the announce table because the announce table was like right outside the ring. Like the apron, it wasn't even like a wide apron.
On the apron,
The apron's like this big, so it's
Well, ROH used to do that too. Like they'd have the announcers sitting right there at the ring.
Look, it is not only stupid because I watched the whole damn show. There was no issue. Nobody had an issue anywhere. It went fine. I haven't watched the Ring of Honor thing. But you know what I haven't heard? I haven't heard about anybody having an issue because of the tiny ring. So what am I led to believe? Nobody had a problem with it.
No, but it was the discourse the entire day for like a day or two afterwards. And even from people who should know better. Like the voices of wrestling guys. Like
it was a damn good show.
Joe Lanza. Like talking about the ring size, and it's like y'all should fucking know better than this.
Yeah, because
you're contributing to.
I just know like I've watched a lot of wrestling, and man, I have seen some shit rings in my day, or like back in the day when they used to have them in boxing rings. Like old MSG shows was just a boxing ring. I think CMLL might still be a boxing ring.
Yeah, you don't want to bump in there.
But it got so bad that even people like QT Marshall had to start commenting on Twitter. And guys that used to work for AEW but don't anymore, like Joey Janela had to comment and be like, what's the whole point of all this? Again, you might be like, oh, I can't believe, like a lot of people, it's like, I can't believe we're talking about the ring size. It's like, but it's not about ring size. That's my point. And because he's a particularly stupid person, but JD from New York on Twitter.
Fuck. Do we have to? Is he the
Hang
one?
on, hang on. Let me make the succulent wanker motion
Is
for
he
that
the?
guy.
Is he that dipshit that Alexa Bliss like told off a number of years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, and he used
Same
to
guy.
actually be. He actually used to be like an AEW like fanboy, until he got, I think, like creepy or weird with like some of the female talent, and they like ripped him a new asshole, and then ever since then he's been like totally. And I'm sure also because there's
Why-
money to
why-
be had in it. He's on the anti AEW hate
Can I
pro
ask-
WWE grift train.
Just a side question. Is it so hard to like do YouTube or like be any kind of influencer and not be like a sex pest? Like is it like is it that hard?
Apparently. He's no, you know what, Brad, like it really is. I don't know. You'd think it'd be easy, but a lot of people do it. So
Like
I
I
don't
just know like
Um,
I just know like when it comes to the influencer sphere, like man or woman, like you might as well just assume they're a sex pest because they're probably a sex pest.
But anyway, JD from New York, because he's dumb, he basically said the quiet part out loud. Because he got into it with QT Marshall, and it's like, what is this really about? Is it really about ring size? And it's like he kind of gave the game away of what it really is about. He's like, oh, like I'm so glad. Kind of being facetious, but he's like, oh, like this small indie company had to save AEW, and it's like, that's the point. You were trying to sell the message, and that's what this is about, is that AEW was so incompetent of a company, and it's so low rent of a company. They couldn't even, like, not that they couldn't afford to send their own ring, it's like they're too incompetent. Like, oh, they didn't even think to send their own ring
Yeah, sure.
over
that's
to,
how
and
it
so
works.
a local indie company had to save their big show by giving them, like, lending them a ring. And QT Marshall had to step in on Twitter and be like, we contracted with a local company to provide the ring months ago.
Yeah.
So
You
if
know
you
how
want
much-
to give him kudos, it's like, yes, thank you, local company, for upholding the contract that we signed with you months ago to provide a ring that we paid you to provide for us all along, rather than us ship it. And that's where people like Joey Janela got in. It's like, I think either him or Sean Ross Sapp. I think it was Sean. He stepped in too, but I think Joey Janela may have thrown out figures. I think he was saying like it'll probably. Someone said, either him or Sean, I think, was like it would probably cost like $40,000 to ship a ring from the United States to America. I mean, sorry, from America to Australia,
And back.
and all that just to set up the ring. Like it makes way more sense to go to a local promotion
Yeah.
and be like, we need a ring. Can we like pay you money?
Can
to
we
rent the
give you a
ring?
big
And we
pile of money
Well,
to borrow
Yeah.
your ring for a night?
and you
And
might
then that supports the local indie stuff there?
you might pay all that money for the ring, and they might lose your fucking ring. Like
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but and this is Dave Meltzer also weighed in this too, where he said, or him and other people were like, the WWE doesn't do this because the WWE, because they're a big company, in some of these locations they already own rings in that location, and they just have that shipped. So it's like, oh, we're gonna do a show in like Great Britain, you know, like London or you know, Wales, some place. It's like, oh, we own a ring in Great Britain. We'll just make the phone call like, hey, we're gonna do a show in like June in London. So can you make sure, like, let's set it up, like we're gonna ship the ring there. But it's all disingenuous.
and they probably
Yeah,
have
Like that was the point. It's to present like AEW is so low rent, like they're so incompetent, like they had to scramble to get a ring, and it's like that never was the case. But it doesn't matter. Like,
do they
but we
think
have to
like
suffer through like a day and a half of like ring discourse.
do they think like when New Japan run shows here that they like ship their ring over? Like
they don't think about that, Brad. All
It doesn't
what-
matter.
what-
Yeah.
yeah.
But like why? But
It-
like it makes the like with WWE, yeah, they probably have rings there, or they probably own the plane. They can put like, they can like, you know, bypass a lot of stuff and get it cheaper because they can just have the plane. But it's like, if I was running a show overseas, like the first thing I'm gonna do is call someone like, hey, you got a ring? Because I want to use your ring. How much? Because what? Like even like take the cost out of it. Why do you want the headache of what could happen of trying to fly your ring to another country? Like, what happens if it gets lost? What happens if it gets damaged? What if the fucking plane crashes?
I don't know if this is really the case, but I would almost be like, I would, because they have a working relationship. If I was Tony Khan, I'd almost be like calling up New Japan. It's like, hey, can y'all ship a ring? If you're gonna ship a ring, or it's like, how much would it cost to ship your ring over to Australia and back, like for the show? It may cost less to go from Japan to Australia and back.
At least in Japan, you could probably toss it on a boat.
Yeah, but that at least, like, I would, Japan and Australia.
It's not that far.
Well, not like, it's not that far. I mean, it's not like, 10-minute drive down the road. No, it's like, it's obviously far, but it's got to be closer than
I
even
think
like
you can.
the west coast of America.
I think you can leave Japan and get to Australia the same day. At least you're not like doing the America thing where it's like, okay, I left at 6 a.m. on Monday and I got there at 3 a.m. last Saturday.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like that.
It's having it. You're screwing with international borders, and
Yeah.
the less that you can have a hassle at international borders, the better. So what do? Instead of paying, and we're ballparking here, if instead of paying $40,000 to ship your ring there, with no insurance in case anything goes wrong, you roll to that local indie and be like, hey guys, we'll pay you $10K to rent your ring for this. Is that cool? And they're going to be like, dude, yes. And then they're going to be really happy. You know what they've done? They have built a good relationship with an indie in that area.
Or the other thing is like, hey, can we rent your ring? Like, hey, can we use your licenses and bypass some of the gridlock?
What were you going to say, Matt?
Yeah, well, AEW announced, I'm sure because they had a big gate and it was successful, like they announced they're coming back next year for a show to Australia. So it's like, under that, it's like, take it easy, go to that company. It's like, hey, so like the deal we worked out with you for that ring, like really like worked great. Like, let's do it again. IVP Videos, who follows us on Twitter, and he's a great guy. We talked about him on the show. Like, great. He sells a lot of great stuff. IVP Videos, Google it if you don't know. He commented, which I got a big kick out of. He's like, I hope that AEW did the time honored tradition of like whoever like owned the ring, like they like booked him on the show, like as a like a job or something like that. And it got a big kick out of that because like that is like how it would work back in the day. It's like, oh, you own the ring, like you need the ring, can like rent your ring? It's like, yeah, like can I have a match with like, can I be like have a 4-minute squash match with like I don't know, like Dustin Rhodes? Like, sure, come on, like I would do it.
And the thing is, if you're like, let's say you pop in to Australia and you're giving a promotion 5,000 American for their ring, that probably that $5,000 probably means another couple of years of running for that promotion if they're running on a tight budget. Like, I mean, Shad's worked at places like that. I know he's not deep into the financials, but like the place you worked, if someone had offered them $5K for the ring, that's probably how far would that have gone with some of those local companies?
See, and the other side to it is with a lot of places I worked, what they did is they worked as a fundraiser, because then that way that they could get access to some other stuff and not have headaches about things. But so if it was just, hey, here's $5K straight to the pocket, like, dude, that's amazing. By the way, all of our guys will come help set it up. We'll come carry it in. Do you need some security? They'll be right there. Like, this will be a ready-made package, and it is a win-win the whole way around.
You can upgrade.
But but we have to have people who are going to fake concerns like, oh God, what if somebody got hurt from a ring that's too small? Never mind the fact that these are professionals that know how to handle it. God bless. I know that it's a running gag and everything, but yeah, I'm not going to say it. Never mind.
It's
just
the IWC is dead. That's just.
there's too much of a proliferation of grifters, and then there's nobody like there were dumb takes back in our forum days. Here's the thing.
Vectron makes a good point too. Is like, and I kind of said it, but he made it in a bigger sense. Like, you're talking about in Australia, a company coming in and paying you in U.S. dollars. Like when that starts converting over, like you're making even more on
another
top of,
50% on top of that with the exchange. Like,
because if you go to like certain countries, like, and you deal with like local businesses and stuff, like they will always, if they know you have like American currency on you, will want that over their local currency.
Yeah. So instead of having, instead of the forums we had back in the day, someone would pop in, make a stupid comment, and then what would happen is a bunch of people go, "That's really stupid. What the hell's wrong with you?" Now what happens is people throw a stupid thing out there, and people rage engage with it, so it gets it more visibility, and it looks like that it's a popular take. It's not. People are looking at this because they hate it, and they don't want to interact with it, but it's still getting views, so the algorithm's like, hey, this is getting views. You want to see it? Here, look at it. Look at it. Look at it. You, I'm going to smack you in the nose. Look at it. And so it's...
A lot of it's fake.
And the grifter culture, too. Throw that in there.
A lot of it's fake because, like, if you... Like, I quit posting on Reddit recently, but, like, especially within the last year, you like something would happen and you see all these posts like, oh, I see the new round of Act Blue checks like cleared yesterday, guys.
Well, and I think that's part. I know that some people saw there are subreddits that are like you don't link directly to X, formerly known as Twitter, anymore. You can like do screenshots, but
which is stupid because then people have to go to X to verify that it's true anyway because you can fake those. But I have a theory that because what's funny is some of those forums were really pushing Blue Sky, and like especially on the sports subs, they just went to Threads because no one uses Blue Sky for sports. But then like a couple of them came back and banned more stuff just so it could just be Blue Sky, and I was like, I kind of like my theory has always been that with that site-wide Twitter thing, because Redditors are stupid, someone was making money off of that.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
The astroturfing.
And I half think it was a Blue Sky paid AstroTurf.
I don't know.
Based on how some of the subs were pretty smart about how they did it, but others were like, "Oh yeah, we're just banning everything but Blue Sky."
Yeah, there were most of the ones that I have spent any time in were just like, don't link directly to Twitter. That's the only thing.
But then you had people...
I'm sorry, X, formerly known as Twitter.
But you had people coming into like... and a lot of them, it would be people would come in to bring it up that had never posted in that sub before or to try and shame them. But they would come into like... cat pictures and be like, we don't post stuff to X. But then, like, in the sports subs, it would be like, oh, yeah, we're doing this. And then all the comments would be like, this is fucking stupid. Like, what else? That's all this.
There's just so much inertia that a lot of those things haven't switched over. Like, will there end up being stuff on Blue Sky? Probably. But that hasn't happened yet. So...
Well, but the thing is, though, like, the sports subs, it was stupid because they're saying, like, well, we can just use Blue Sky. It's like, no one goes to Blue Sky for sports stuff. Like, there are not sports fans there. That is not the kind of user they're attracting. Like, the beat writers are not going to go and waste time on a place where they don't get any engagement whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It was just... But it's funny to see how, especially on Reddit, it's funny how much they like to jerk themselves off over how smart they are, and then how easy they fall for the bots and AstroTurfs.
Dude, the thing is, everybody's like that. Everybody is gonna... Oh, man, that's how people get taken into cults. They think they're too smart for it, so they get suckered in by it. And they just get manipulated. So,
because Reddit, once you see the workings on Reddit's like nakedly obvious. There's actually funny. I saw a link to a forum. It was a subreddit that someone made where they were using AI bots to make it like a Reddit subreddit, and you really couldn't tell it apart like from a normal subreddit. That's how predictable Redditors are. But it's always it's always a fun time on Reddit.
If you're gonna be the people who were concern posting about the damn ring size, it's like y'all, either you're grifters or y'all really need to find something better to do, because you could just say, no, Matt, you even sent the one where the guy's concerned posting about it, and like, well, did you think it was a good show? He goes, well, I don't watch it. It's like, what the hell is your problem? Like, just go ahead and put the clown nose on.
And I think why the concern posting there is so stupid, because the size of the ring I don't think is going to injure you before the ring being of poor quality and breaking would injure you.
So here's another wrinkle that came up earlier that I did not mention, but I find, first of all, I talked with some guys that had done WWE tryouts, and you get running, you hit the ropes, you run, you're like, we'll get there eventually, right? Oh, okay, here it is. But the other thing that jumped out that I think, if you want to have concerns about ring safety, is the difference between using cables versus using ropes. Because ropes are going to have different elasticity and snapback. Ropes are going to have a different failure rate. And, the failure rate's going to go up the more you use them. Cables are more stable, more steady, and they have a more consistent rebound to them.
If you're working like 5 days a week in the same, with like a WWE ring, like wouldn't the wear and tear on
to that, but
wouldn't the wear and the tear on your knees over like a long haul be easier on the cable because you're getting more push off than versus ropes?
I don't know how much that would matter. The thing that jumps out to me is, if you're working 5 days a week in one of those rings, how often are they changing the ring ropes?
Oh, I imagine for a company like WWE. Well, I mean, and Cornette talked about when he was in charge of that stuff and all the stuff. Are they still using ropes? Because I thought Cornette had them on cables when he
did, there. And then WWE pitched a fit over, we want you to use ropes. He goes, we don't use ropes. We use cables. We like cables better. Well, we'll send you extras. And the first set they sent them broke and dumped Mark Henry to the outside of the ring and injured him for 6 months. So
I would imagine,
it wouldn't surprise me if he threw all the ropes in the river and we're using cables, kiss my ass, Johnny Ace.
I would imagine a company that makes money like WWE and doesn't want their talent to get hurt. I bet those ring ropes go in the trash like every show or every other show.
It might. But if that's the case, why? Use cables. They last longer. They hold up better.
Though it's always fun when you go to a show in the first match, like the first time someone goes in the ropes, they break the cable because they didn't tighten them right.
Oh God,
that happened to Adam Cole, and I don't remember who is wrestling in an ROH show I went to. They snapped the ropes on the first Irish Whip, and then he had to work a match with this guy with no ropes.
That's especially difficult for Adam Cole.
He did a pretty good job. He did come off the ropes because I think it was the bottom one, but he just did the rope runs a little different, where he didn't actually do it. He just kind of fake.
You can hit it, not hit it hard, I guess. But point remains: if you want a concern post about rings, worry less about the size. Worry more about what your ropes are made of.
I just feel like with if the ring is gonna hurt you, it's gonna be the ropes or part of the ring breaking on you.
Yeah. If you want to have a big concern, there are a lot of places that the platform of the ring itself is made with 2x4s. There's a few reasons. One, it's easier to take down to move. Two, it makes a fantastic noise when you do any. If you run the ropes, have a good night, Vectron. If you run the ropes just in a ring that's like that, they'll clang, 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 and it sounds awesome. The big problem is if something happens and one of those boards pops up. Now you've got a very active danger. And you have to like take most of the ring down to fix it. So that's not great. And then there are some places where the platform for the ring is just one flat piece of plywood.
What happened? The Sid Doctor Death match in UWF. They just caved part of the ring in, didn't they? Because remember because we were really impressed with that match because they couldn't use like a whole quadrant of the ring because they broke it.
Probably something like that, but I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah, and I mean, and just think about talking about ring safety because we just talked about it just last week. Like that's how when they put the trapdoor in there for Warrior's entrance, that's how Davey Boy like screwed his back up.
Yeah, that should not have been there.
Yeah,
in under no circumstances.
So then the main event for tonight. So was it the 15th that Gran Hamada passed away, Matt? I think it was the 15th. It was recent.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't know who Gran Hamada is, if you're like a newer fan, so he was pretty big in Mexico in like the 80s and the 90s, and then he kind of was a prominent part of M-Pro for like the early years. And then I think he did some stuff with All Japan a bit. Like I don't think he ever worked much in like the bigger promotions in Japan. I think he did some shots here with All Japan and New Japan, but he was more a Mexico guy because of his size, unfortunately. Like that's how he ended up in Mexico.
I guess the company that I know that he did the most with in Japan, I think, was Michinoku Pro.
Yeah, that's what.
Because that, like, probably a lot of people, like, my first exposure to him was through Michinoku Pro, specifically because
ECW.
In the late 90s, ECW had kind of a brief working relationship with Michinoku Pro. So a lot of those guys, like you saw, and he was on that, I think it was a trios match.
Oh, Barely Legal. Because it was Kai and Tai. It was Kai and Tai versus him. It wasn't Super Dolphin, was it? No, I don't think. It was him. It was some guy I don't remember because Grand Naniwal was supposed to be in it and then couldn't do it. And then it was I don't think it was Super Dolphin, but it was Kai and Tai. So it was Taka.
It was Gran Hamada, Masato Yakushiji, and Great Sasuke.
Okay, yeah, Great Sasuke.
Versus Kai and Tai, who was
Taka
Michinoku, and Min's Tejo, aka Terry Boy.
Yeah. That was my first exposure to him, and then
Yep.
But so he's what I would say what he's most known for, probably career wise, is working for the UWA in Mexico.
Yeah. Let me look up real quickly. Hold on. Oh, yeah, he did die in the 15th.
Okay. I'd seen pictures of him recently. He was in a wheelchair, so I think he was in really bad shape before he passed away.
That's unfortunate. Rough. So if he died age 74, that means that he was born in 1950. Because it's early in the year enough that he probably would have turned 75, unless he just turned 74.
Yeah.
He would have turned 75, so I'm guessing in like 1950. So that means like by the time his ECW stuff, he was like 47.
Yeah.
Roughly. So he was, he started his career, it looks like 1972. So he was a 25-year veteran roughly.
He's really the one thing that's funny about Hamada, and he's really easy to tell what point of his career is in by his physique. Like if you look at his physique, you know about what point of his career he's in. But yeah, so he's a guy. I'd commented to Matt and Shad when I was watching these, like he's really hard. He's a really hard talent to have much to say about. Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just like, I don't know what to say about him. He's just good. Like he's good at everything. He has charisma. He's a good face. Like his offense is good. He sells well. Like he does everything well. Like he's just good.
It's tough. I agree. Like I think it's tough to compare him on. It's like who would you compare him to modern day? And I almost would compare him to someone like Kyle O'Reilly. Maybe that's not a good comparison. But Kyle O'Reilly to me, it's like he's a good worker, and he doesn't have zero charisma. But is he the most charismatic? Like no.
I don't know. I think Hamada has a lot of charisma though. It's just under like
Maybe more
does.
Roddy Strong than Kyle O'Reilly.
I think Roderick Strong's a good
Maybe.
comparison.
Maybe. Because Roderick is very good. I would say Roderick has more personality or charisma than Kyle O'Reilly. No offense.
I would say
Yeah,
I would say Roderick is a good comparison because when Roderick does face work, Roderick's a really strong baby face.
But Roderick's a great worker, and Hamada was a great worker. So I think something like that is comparable.
Yeah,
where
it's just
they're not necessarily like your ace, but
Yeah.
they're good enough that it's like you can put them in just about any position, and they will give you great matches and get over
Yeah.
and do well.
it's just like I was watching this. I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like he's good. His stuff looks good. He's always in the right place. His selling's good. He looks like he would be an absolute delight to work with because he would be easy as hell to work with. And like I said, like I was just kind of stumped because I was just like, he's just too good. Like it's not even like you can pick some guys apart or if you've seen more of their matches or do little nitpicks. But I'm like, I can't nitpick the guy. Like everything I watched, he was excellent, like almost perfect.
Yeah. The
The
worst
term
is like he's solid. That's like the worst you could say.
That's the term that I used. Is that from watching? Like, I knew Gran Hamada's name. I hadn't seen a lot of him, but from just watching, the guy is rock solid. And look, that may not sound like a lot to some people, but if you are that solid, if you are that good, that solid consistently, dude, that's amazing.
He looks like the kind of guy if I got in the ring with him, like he would just be doing all this shit and I'd look amazing. I'd be like, I didn't even do anything. Like he did all the work. Like remember that one where we watched like Jarrett and Nash work like on Raw and Jarrett was doing all this stuff and Nash was like barely moving and Jarrett was doing all this work. Like that's what. Actually, Jeff Jarrett's a great, I think, counterbalance to Hamada.
Jarrett,
He's a little flashier than Jarrett is.
Yeah. Jarrett's underrated. People who hate on him all the time. He's underrated.
Yeah. So we
this actually, can I digress really quickly? Like this reminds me, like I talked about this before, but the match that happened in last like year roughly, that was Tom Billington versus Dax Hardwood. They had a great match, and it's like it was so clearly like you watch wrestling like a lot, like we have. You can clearly see it's the veteran Dax like walking Tom Billington. Like he's clearly like giving the kid a lot, and he's doing a lot in the match. He's doing the most in the match, but he's good enough and he's experienced enough that he can do it where it's like unless you're someone like us who's experienced and watching it, you can tell. It's like a magic trick. It's like I know how the magic trick is performed, so I could see like, oh look, that's where he did the sleight of hand. But it came off really well, and Tom Billington, looked like he looked great because Dax knew what to do. But
yeah,
Hamada
there was a Nash story I listened to with it. They were talking about Ricky Morton. He's like, oh yeah, like we had one of those emergency shows. They're like, hey Nash, can you? And this is like when he was Oz or something. And they're like, hey, can you work like 20 minutes with Ricky Morton? And he's like, I had never worked 8 or 10 minutes before in my life, and I was scared to death. And Ricky Morton's like, oh, we'll be fine. Just give me space, and I'll get us through this. And he's like, I learned so much.
Yeah. God, to share the ring with someone like Ricky Morton would just have been amazing.
Their
Chad.
Their Hey AEW is hilarious.
It's really good. Yes, Matt.
Shad, like how old is Ricky Morton? He's got to be at least in his 60s.
I mean,
maybe. Like, and obviously, but an old man, Ricky Morton, I could probably have like a month of training in wrestling. Not that I'm I'm not unathletic, but I'm not, the most athletic person on the planet. I'm sure it'll give me a month of training, so at least I just know how to take a bump and maybe do a
68.
couple moves.
I could do
68?
that
Mm-hmm.
with you,
68.
Matt, but if you did it with Morton, man, it'd be a whole other world.
There's just no one.
I'm just saying, like, I could get in 1 month training. I could get in the ring with old ass Ricky Morton at 68 years of age, and he'd probably like walk me through. I don't have a decent match, but he'd probably walk me through a match that would be watchable.
Well, the thing is,
And
like,
I'd probably you would probably pat me on the back. It's like, you did okay. You didn't embarrass yourself, and I'd be like, it was all 68-year-old
Well,
Ricky Morton.
the
Ricky
thing
Morton's
is-
still like,
the thing is though, like, so yeah, but you're gonna go out there. He's gonna take your basic ass student offense. He's gonna sell his fucking balls off for you. He's gonna get all this heat for you, and then the crowd's gonna pop big when he beats you. And then like they're gonna be like, "Oh, like you did such a great job." Like I didn't do shit. Like it was just him writhing around in pain for 10 minutes.
So one of the hottest matches I ever had was with the local pro John Noble. And you know what we did for most of that match is we just goofed off.
You
We
said
did the stupid ass. What's that,
you
Brad?
did the Bugs Bunny routine where he like felt you up and he was like, "Oh God, he's."
Yeah. We did this stupid ass thing where we hit the ropes and then we're doing the cross drill and I bailed out and just watched him run the ropes for a minute before he falls over and he looks around and go, "Where'd he go?" And I'm outside the ring and I'd taken like a water bottle from somebody and I just toast him with it and give it back to him. And we go in there and we do the same thing and he bails out. Look how smart I am. And I bail out behind him. He backs up into me and does the full on, like you said, Brad, Bugs Bunny. Feels all the way back. And I was a lot taller than him. So he feels all the way up to my face and then stops and goes, we goofed off the entire time and the crowd went ballistic. If you're working with somebody that good, you don't have to do a whole lot. It's God. And let me put it this way, if you've got a little bit of skill at it, which is, I would say I had a little bit of skill at it, it makes it even easier because then he doesn't have to tell you how to play off of it. You can kind of pick it up and go with it.
There's Bad News Allen told a story like he was in Japan and had to work. He was tagging with Dick Murdoch. And like they were working with these guys that weren't very good and he said they were doing this match and he started doing the which way did he go routine because the guys weren't very good. And he said he had to crawl under the ring because he was laughing so hard.
Oh God. I should have, in hindsight, I really should have just leaned into being a comedy,
That's one
like
of my,
trying to do a comedy gimmick. I should have.
That's one of my favorite Hogan spots ever, other than selling for the old ladies, when they did the Sting rematch on Nitro, and Sting like does his Hulk up, and then he kind of loses it and then he falls because he's been beaten up and he headbutts Hogan right in the balls, and Hogan starts curly shuffling in the middle of the ring.
Who was it like a few weeks ago that I told you there was a curly shuffle sighting that somebody did?
Oh,
MJF did it not that long ago.
Yeah, that's what it was. MJF versus Dustin Rhodes. MJF straight up did a curly shuffle right there in the middle of the match.
That's hilarious.
I saw that and I immediately hit our group chat and I'm like, curly shuffle sighting by MJF.
So I'm gonna go in reverse order that I watched these. So we're gonna do the first one, which is a trios match, I'm gonna get this wrong. So it's Gran Hamada, El Dande, and El Satanico versus, is it Angel Blanco Jr.
Angel Blanco.
It was
Morgan.
Oh, Emilio Charles Jr.
Emilio Charles.
Yeah.
Who
Junior.
is like very young in this, because if you see what he like eventually looked like, he almost had like a Bruiser Brody type of thing going on, where he was much smaller than Brody, but he had like the beard, like long hair, and as he got older, like he through years of scarring and everything like that, he looked all craggy.
Yeah, and then it was who was the other guy? I might be mad, right? Who was the other guy?
It wasn't a Pirata Morgan?
Yeah, because I was
Captain
I,
Morgan.
I was messaging Matt. I'm like, Pirata Morgan is really young and it's freaking me the fuck out.
El Satanico was probably only like 50 versus like 100.
Yeah,
So
I was like, hey, Satanico looks like he has a pulse. Like he must be a spry like 55 in this match.
yeah.
But this was like more of a standard lucha trios, and I was happy because like for the last fall, like Dr. Alfonso Morales came on for the commentary, which there's something about hearing his voice that's always comforting with lucha. But this is pretty good. Gran Hamada gets body slammed on the floor by Angel Blanco Jr. in the beginning. I thought El Dande was really fun in this.
Oh yeah, El Dandy. Who are you to doubt?
Yeah.
Who are you to doubt El Dandy?
And,
El Dandy was also young in this. I don't know what year this was. This
No,
had to have
because
been like
whoever did this, I almost put a message on there. He put like this was taped April 6th, and I'm like, what year? I'm thinking this was like
this.
It would depend on when
This had to have been
Satanico.
80s.
It depends on when Satanico lost his mask. I'm gonna say this was like, because this wasn't a UWA show. I think this was like an EMLL show, maybe.
I'm gonna look this up, but yeah, this had to have been like the 80s. I don't. Some of the matches we saw were a lot of the matches we saw were like from the 90s.
Yeah.
And
And
again,
also,
I had a notebook that had
Hamada-
a lot of this stuff
Hamada-
written down. But
Hamada was very much looked very young in this too. Like he was very slight. He didn't have like that bulkier look he got kind of as he aged.
Yeah.
When he obviously bulked up a bit. But I also what I liked about this one is that there's a spot where Morgan and Satanico kind of mess up an arm drag. And I like that because so what happened is kind of Satanico went for it and he kind of fell. And then he just kind of did this prone, like, uh-oh, like I have to get up because he's going to attack me. And they really covered the blown spot really well, I thought.
Yeah. I almost missed it.
oh wow, I was wrong. This is EMLL, and this was from April 6th, 1990.
Okay.
That's
That would have
actually
been
a little later than I thought it would have been.
that would have been El Dande's like big run.
Hmm.
That's a little later than I thought,
people-
but I thought it depended because El Satanico did not have his mask, so I was like, this places it at a certain time period, but I'm not sure when Satanico lost his mask.
Yeah. Yeah, for people who don't, who maybe if they remember at all, El Dandy from WCW, where he was kind of just like a jobber, almost. He was big star in the early '90s in Lucha.
In
like,
'89,
big star.
I think '89
Yeah,
is like
yeah, and had great matches. I've only seen like a limited amount of it, but he was a very talented worker. So
I think he has a 5-star. Like he's gotten a 5-star match. I think at some point. I've been wanting to do like it for the meme, but like he has been on my list of I want to do like a spotlight episode on him at some point. But his punches look good. I thought this was like a fun little lucha tag.
yeah, I thought it was fun. I included it with our review. Is it the best lucha match you're gonna see? Like, no.
No.
Is it the best lucha match we've reviewed? No. But it was fun. It was just like a fun little lucha match with some like actual like classic lucha talent, like Pirata Morgan and El Satanico. While they haven't always been like the best in ring, like they've hung on longer than they should have, but they are like, it's like watching matches with, you know, Arn Anderson or I'll say Ric Flair, but you know, like classic guys,
Yeah.
like Kurt Hennig or somebody that has been around, like was around for like a long time, was like really like a great worker. So it was worth your time investing in it, and Hamada looked great in it.
Is the Atlantis Viano Tricero match the best lucha match we've reviewed on this show? The mask versus mask match.
Maybe. It was very good.
I would say that's if it's at worst the second best we've. No. No, that's a tough question because I forgot we did all those Rey Mysterio psychosis like
Psychosis.
trios and like singles matches because that one that those were all really good. Especially their singles match in AAA was like excellent.
Yeah.
That's tough. We've done some heavy hitting like lucha stuff on here.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, and the Chicano Sagrada MS5 match was really good too.
We have done so much stuff on the show. It is hard for me to remember things.
I know. I'm good at remembering if we've done it if I see it, so I don't put something double on there. But no, it was a lot of fun. It was probably my second favorite match we did of this lot. So then we have this is from UWA. So then we have Gran Hamada versus Dr. Wagner Jr., which I think this is a fun little sprint. There's not like a huge heel. Like this is kind of like it feels kind of exhibition-y, I would say. Wagner is playing subtle heel with his body language.
Yeah.
In the match.
That's it. It is there. I think what the way I described it was there's not much of a face versus heel dynamic, but it was just really really good.
You can tell.
So
you can tell by like how Wagner reacts to like near falls and stuff. He's being a little rudo-y because like the way he emotes like not getting the count and stuff. I think is a little more rudo-y than not. But this is like what it's 10 minutes. I don't know if this is just like a singular fall because sometimes with these lucha matches, just FYI if you're watching them, it's hard to tell if they're complete or not. Sometimes depending on how they.
I think this was also UWA, and this
It was.
was I think just this. I think it was just a single fall.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
it wasn't. Usually, obviously, when you see like trios matches, they're like 3 falls, and the trios match that we just talked about was 3 falls. But this was I think a single fall. It was pretty good. Like
they had good chemistry.
Yeah, it was good. Was this one of the best lucha matches we've ever seen? Like, no. Was it a solid, like, probably at least like 3-star match? Yeah, we don't really rate stuff, but it's like, it's solid.
Wagner Jr. is a good watch more often than not.
Dr. Wagner Jr. is fantastic. Like I'm actually a big fan of his. I have his wrestling. I've had his wrestling mask for like over a decade. Like I love him. And like, he's fantastic.
Shad, Shad, he had like he and LA Park had this feud that went on probably for like 5 years in Mexico in the late aughts. And I swear to God, they worked like every promotion in Mexico like multiple times together just because it was drawing so well.
Nice. Very nice.
His for those modern story, but his son, El Hijo del Wagner Jr., Dr. Wagner Jr., it was working in Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan for the last like 3 years roughly. Even became their world champion for a brief period, for like a couple months. And then his contract ended with Noah, and there was a lot of rumor he was going to go to the WWE.
Yeah.
And I think that was likely, but it seems like behind the scenes that they, for what has been shared, they wanted him to drop the mask. Which it's like, what? Why? But allegedly they wanted to drop the mask because he's for a luchador, he's bigger.
Yeah.
He's not like, I'm 5'10", 200 pounds. He's a bigger guy. So they wanted him to drop it and be maskless. And it's like, this is why why drop the mask when it's like you're gonna have him like be part of the LWO under the Paul era, or he's gonna be like competing with Andrade for the WWE Speed title in a 3-minute match.
If even that, if he's
within
not
like
in,
three.
if he's not in NXT until he's 35.
Yeah. But they wanted him to allegedly dropped the mask, and he was like, no. And so he just signed a deal with AAA, which it's like I roll because that's Conan's promotion, and Conan, hates AEW with a passion, so he's gonna
Well,
not want him.
I was just I was just kind of surprised that AAA was like interested in him because I'm pretty sure El Hijo del Wagner has not assaulted near enough women for like the threshold of Conan hiring them.
Yeah, he hasn't abused women. He hasn't had sexual assault convictions against him.
Not enough drug charges.
Yeah. He signed them with like a 1-year contract, which people have said like it's not because he wants to change his mind about the mask. He's giving WWE like a year to change their mind, but we'll see. Like
I think
he's really talented. I would love to see Tony Khan maybe try and throw a lot of money his way because I think he could be a good talent, but we'll see.
I would really just, even if he'd ever signed with WWE, I would just like to see him get funneled to CMLL where like there's actual talent for him to work with.
He'd be really good there. I think he would.
So the next match is the match that was my favorite match of the evening, and like was the one that I could really sink my teeth into. So this one it's Gran Hamada and Paraguayo against Los Brazos. And this is so if you don't know who they are, so there's Brazo de Oro and his brother Brazo de Plata, better known as Super Porky.
Super Porky.
And so the Brazos were like, I don't know the best way to describe them. I guess they were kind of like the lucha version of like the heel shit kicker team of like the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Super Porky did a really good job with it. Like, I kind of didn't expect that. And yet here I am watching this, and he's not just being a good heel, he's playing the role of the heavy in this match really well. He's not even, and I mean, it's Super Porky. He's built like Super Porky, but then what happens is just all of a sudden, you're watching this, and all of a sudden you just hear, "What?" Can he lay something in, and you're like, damn.
My favorite thing he does is Super Porky. I mean, he died in 2020, I think. He died
recently.
Yeah.
It may have been a little later than that, but yeah.
But one of the things he would do, so he did it in this match. He does like the earthquake like chest splash.
Mm-hmm.
So he would do that to guys because he's a big fat guy. He'd do that, and then he'd do the thinker pose while he was sitting on them.
Mm.
That was always my favorite thing he did.
He was laying it in. He did. I think it was a splash off the top, and I was like, "Geez, dude, I don't think I'd kick out of that one."
So
he splashed his brother by mistake a couple times. That's what I liked. Is they they had like things where things kind of blew up in their faces without it being comical.
Yeah.
So I am by no stretch of the imagination a lucha aficionado. Like I'm not an expert on lucha at all. Have I watched some lucha? Absolutely, because I love pro wrestling. So I will watch multiple different genres of pro wrestling. I'm an open-minded, open-hearted person about wrestling. So I've seen some, and I've seen some back in the day. So I see a lot of I saw some AAA, which I've never been big on AAA.
Yeah, it's too goofy.
CMLL, I was always more a fan of, and so I've seen many years ago. I saw Super Porky, but that I saw him in an era where it's he was already older, established, really fat, and had transitioned as a lot of older workers do. That I'm mostly just doing comedy stuff now.
He was signed to the WWE briefly, and has one of my favorite. Yes. His claim to fame in WWE was, I think he was in Teddy Long's office just eating a ham, and he offered him some. He doesn't say anything the whole time, but yeah.
Yeah. But he's a comedy character, still over. When I saw him back, I think it was in CMLL, super over. Imagine the most over comedy gimmick in AEW or even the WWE, and it's that guy was over. More comedy, so you're not gonna put your world title on him, whatever. But obviously, no one questions like this guy's getting booked. Like everyone goes crazy for him, and I enjoyed him back when I saw that stuff. But I didn't really see a lot of like the actual like the worker. Brazos de Prata, Super Porky. So seeing some of this, I'm like, man, I want to see more because he impressed me with this, and some of it was like some of the strikes they were doing. It's like, oh, y'all are working snug. Like
Yeah.
even Hamada too. Hamada, I had a notebook that I wrote down a lot of notes that I lost. It's somewhere here in my house. But I was like, Hamada's strikes, everyone strikes, but Hamada's strikes look really good, like crisp. Like they would lay into each other, and I'm like, damn, like it was good. It was really good.
Well, except everyone except for Aguayo, because I was watching him do his drop kicks, and I'm like, those are done perfectly, but they're also such a light touch that he's not killing people with them.
He seemed, I actually wrote this in my notes, that he seemed a little like, almost like a half speed. Like it was still good. He still did a good performance, but he also was like, he could be doing a little more. Like it's just clearly like you're, not that you're going through the motions, but it's like you're not going all out. It's not like a big show. This was a UWA show. He still did a good job. It was a good match. I actually really enjoyed this match. It was probably my favorite match.
He was also a well-established veteran, like legend at this point, so he didn't need to. But I did come away from this. I'm like, I did see, because it was just long, but there was a Gran Hamada versus Paraguayo match. And I was like, man, I think after the show, I'm gonna check that out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because the thing with Paraguayo is, I love watching Paraguayo work. Like he's just really good.
Yeah, very solid. I mean, he's a legend, and with good reason.
Like
he's very good.
Like sometimes you watch like an old legend you don't have a lot of context for, and you're like, well, I don't get it. Sometimes you do. Like if you watch like Dick the Bruiser, you kind of like get it. But like when you watch Paraguayo, like pretty quickly, like, oh, I see why this guy was like the man.
Two things about. I go back to Super Porky really. I really did enjoy the match. I enjoyed Los Brazos. I want to actually see more of their stuff as a tag team.
You know, I wanted to add onto the Los Brazos while you're talking about them too. You can really see like there's a lot of things that I think they have influence on in like the modern world. Like you can really see the tendrils of like their act, like in the later '90s and early 2000s. Like there's like that like kind of masked like shit kicker team that kind of became popular like as the decade progressed. Like I think you can kind of see them as like prototypical versions of that.
Yeah. One thing I found interesting, this is the first point, was that at the end of the match, they like unmasked. And I know they had a classic feud with the Villanos.
Yeah.
And that culminated in like mask versus mask, and they unmasked. So this must have been after that, which I haven't seen that. I've only heard about it.
I can't figure out the context for that because I didn't. I was trying to look up if this would, but they always talk about them unmasking with the Villanos. So I don't know. The unmasking was weird to me too because like I was like so I don't know.
So and I'm not an expert on UWA, but what I understand of UWA is that it was obviously kind of like a lucha promotion, but they did a lot of shows in Japan, and this show was in Japan with a Japanese crowd. So the nearest I could tell or assume is that this may have been like they wore their masks because it's like
Japan.
I mean,
this is
well, it's like Rey Mysterio in his career has lost his Rey Mysterio Jr. has lost his mask. He doesn't. He's wrestled since he's been with the WWE, which is now like over 20 years. Like he's still wrestles with it, but like we've seen him without the mask, like we know. But it's like I've lost my mask in Mexico, so in Mexico I'm not going to. But outside of Mexico, I can wear a mask and be fine. And they unmasked it, so it wasn't like they were hiding from that. But the nearest I could tell, like I would assume that's probably what was at play.
This is kind of still in that era where it's like, oh, no one's gonna see this. That's not in Japan.
Yeah. The second point I wanted to make is that Chad, I don't know if you are familiar with Psycho Clown, who is a
Just the
modern.
name.
Yeah. I actually like Psycho Clown. I think he's actually a pretty decent worker.
Mm-hmm.
And he's older now, not that old. He's I think like 39.
In
So he's
early 40s,
older.
maybe too. I don't know.
No, I actually looked it up. I think he's like 39. Like
Okay.
he's older,
He's been
but I
around,
mean
but he's been around. I mean, like he feels like he's old because I
around
think
like a long
like
time.
2005, 2006 is when he was like really like starting up in AAA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's been around a long time. He's one of the few AAA workers that I actually really like. I actually think he's pretty decent. Is he like a Vikingo? Like no. Is he like a
I mean,
Hechicero from the MLL?
Viking
Like no.
Vikingo is not Vikingo anymore either, though, since the injury.
Well, yeah.
I think.
But like Mystico, like a lot of guys, like is he like the top? Is he Is he like a different type of
Is he even
top
like?
tier luchador?
I'm gonna go old school. Is he like Averno back in the day?
Maybe. I like Psycho Clown, but Psycho Clown is Super Porky's son.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to know, like, if you want to do a comparison, I was thinking about this when I was watching this match afterwards. I'm like, what's the comparison? Because I was thinking of you, Shad. It's like, it's probably not quite because Super Porky and this guy have a different vibe, obviously. But it's almost like you have Mike Rotundo IRS.
Yeah.
And his son is Bray Wyatt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Psycho Clown to me is like Bray Wyatt, where it's like they have this like kind of like was Bray Wyatt a good worker? It's like actually the Bray Wyatt was a good worker in respects. Was he the best worker? Like no.
He was
Did he have like
he was a good I would say he was a good like tag and multi-tag worker, like in the context where you could hide him and let him do his big spots with other guys. I think he really excelled at that. Like when you needed him to give you like a 15 to 20 minute main event is where he was not at his like strong points as a worker.
But at the same time, I think Bray Wyatt as a singles was fine.
Yeah, he was fine.
Was the best worker? Like, yes and no. Like, you gotta. He had strengths, so if you played those strengths, like you'd have a pretty decent match.
He wasn't like shit or anything, but I just think like if you're like where was Bray Wyatt at his best? Like six mans where he could do like his big moves and like,
or big multi-man scrambles like that elimination chamber where he won the title.
Oh yeah.
That really worked for him
when
too.
When you can hide him and just let him do his big stuff, I think is where he really like looks the best because his big moves are really awesome. So when he can just focus on his big moves, like he looks like a monster.
He was also very good at picking his spots. So as opposed to having to go through and weave everything together, and some of that's not fair because some of it was some dumbass gimmicks he got thrown to. But when he had an opportunity to pick his spots, he really maximized them.
Yeah.
But
I made that analogy just because like Psycho Clown and Super Porky are like there's a very difference. So it's kind of like that. Like IRS is not the same as Super Porky. Super Porky, no offense to Mike Rotundo, Super Porky is way more charismatic, and during his heyday, was a much different and a different character, a more over than Mike Rotundo IRS ever was. But it's kind of that where I made that analogy kind of because it's like you had a guy who was like wide variety in like what the children did. Like Psycho Clown is a star, like is a star, but his gimmick is like I'm the violent, almost brawler type luchador. Whereas Bray Wyatt, same thing. It's like I'm playing various different versions of a heel psycho character.
But I mean, I will say I wonder if Psycho Clown would have more similarities if we watched more Los Brazos because. Like this was a different side of Super Porky. Like he was a much more
serious side.
I mean, we mentioned the splash, but he did a splash off the top rope, and he's not a small man at this point.
No,
and
he's big. He's big in this,
and he did not.
I saw him hit that, and I'm like, oh, that must be the finish right there.
And his punches look good. He did like because he hit Oro with it. But he did a splash over the ropes. Like he kind of did like a he just kind of did like the, oh, I'm gonna die. Like, I mean, there was some agility there. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, that was the thing. Like, and even like when he was a little bit older than this, when I was watching him, well, a little bit older, like 15 years older than this, 20 years older than this, at least 15. Like when he was older, like he still was like remarkably agile for a guy his size.
he could run the ropes.
And there
pretty
are
well,
guys
even.
like that. There are guys in wrestling that are like that. It's like you move faster and with way more agility than you should for a guy your size.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, this was a different side of Super Porky than I mean, I know it's a tribute to Gran Hamada, and it's like whatever Gran Hamada, but because I kind of love Super Porky, but it was interesting, and
but this
to
is
bring it back to Gran
this is what
Hamada, I think Gran Hamada did do a great job in the match.
This
like,
is
Oh yeah.
this is the problem I'm talking about with Gran Hamada though, is Gran Hamada was excellent in this match, but the problem with this match for Gran Hamada is he was an awesome base for the
yes.
Brazos to
Oh,
do their
fantastic base.
yeah, and that's where I'm talking about, like, where I was like, well, it's kind of hard to talk about him because, like, even in, like, it's just like his comebacks were good and stuff, but like he really made the Brazos look awesome.
Mhm.
See, this match has Hamada be the carpenter. He's the frame the match is built around.
Mhm.
And so if you didn't have him, you wouldn't have the glue holding the whole thing together. And he does a great job, but it's not the standout kind of thing that makes you want to talk about
It's
it.
kind of like when you talk about like a defenseman in the NHL or like a referee in most sports. It's like, I think the problem with this match for Hamada is like, so what I say about a defenseman in the NHL is like, if you don't notice they're there, they're doing their job. And like that's kind of the problem Hamada has in this is like, you're not talking about Hamada because Hamada did his job.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're talking about all this great stuff the Brazos did. I'm like, oh yeah, that's because Hamada like said all this stuff and he like really like
Did a great job.
Yeah, like he really was a great base for these guys. Like took their offense well. I think he even did a good job of like making Aguayo shine more when he was in.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like he just really facilitated this match in a great way.
Yeah.
But it's like I was saying that it's hard to talk about because like he was doing the thankless work that made this work, but he's not going to get credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And then our final match is from ECW in 1998. So this is Gran Hamada versus Gran Naniwa, which there needs to be a conversation about how much people jerk off ECW crowds for like how smart and stuff they were, because this match they were annoying as fuck. Like I'm sorry, you can't be a great enlightened crowd when you're chanting boring at guys that are 40 seconds in and just like doing like basic limb work. Because what I do appreciate it about this is so they do this and Naniwa is just like fuck you and he just trolls them for like 12 minutes and like refuses to like do anything interesting. Just like piss them off further.
Yeah, there was always the big story about like, well, where did you see your first favorite wrestler from? And it's like they wrestled in ECW. And it's like, yeah, and the crowd crapped on them.
Yeah.
What was it? The Malenko Voldemort match that was supposed to be like this fantastic back and forth, and the crowd's just crapping on it the entire time.
I think I've seen that match. Yeah, so what happens is they kind of start off, they're doing basic limb work. Like if you've ever watched like Japanese juniors, which again, you know, if they were such a smart crowd, they would know this is how the match starts. So they start chanting boring instantly.
Yeah.
And then, so when Hamada's on offense, he kind of does stuff. Like he takes the pace up, but then I think they did even less because Naniwa just wanted to fuck with them. But my favorite part is there's a part where so Hamada does his comeback, does like a big dive on the floor and gets back in the ring, and you know Naniwa's doing the, well, I'm just gonna catch a breather on the outside, and he starts to get back in the ring. And you can tell like he can tell the crowd like suddenly like engages a bit, and he just gets down and starts jawing at the crowd, which I'm like, oh, like you're trolling this crowd so well.
Yeah.
This was interesting to me because Gran Naniwa, is it Naniwa or Naniwa? Like
I don't know.
I'm
Joey
I'm very
Joey
bad.
Styles didn't
I'm
know.
very
Whoever gave Joey Styles notes on this was wrong, so I don't know.
I'm bad with pronunciation anyway, especially with foreign names. And I've said it before. Like I do not mean disrespect. I'm just bad
So
with pronunciation.
so
So
the general
if I pronounce it wrong, it's not out of disrespect. It's like I'm trying to learn. Usually, like I know because people say it when I
well
hear it in the
well
commentary.
the thing I've learned with Japanese names is 99% of the time if you just pronounce it phonetically it's right. But the problem with Grand Naniwa is it can be correct either way phonetically. So it's kind of. But
Anyway.
usually if you go phonetically with a Japanese name, you're fine.
Um,
It's if you want to
It was
get into
interesting.
the honorifics and be like, oh, is it Grand Naniwa San or Grand Naniwa Kun or one of those things. It wouldn't be Kun because Kun's like a little kid.
It was interesting to me
Keen.
because I feel like I've only ever seen Gran Naniwa as like a face, and here
He's kind
healed
of
it up.
he's typically like a comedy character because
Right.
he has kind of
But
one of
this
my
was all straight.
because he has one of my favorite moves where he does like the Japanese like crab walk where he goes like this like on the ropes on his rope walk. That's
He
one
does
of my
it. He does it in this match
yeah.
briefly.
But I love that move. I just someone needs to rip that off. Orange Cassidy should do it.
You mean hands in the pocket, shuffle down the rope?
And he came when he did the 95 Super J Cup, he had these giant lobster claws he'd wear to the ring. But and this was I mean this was I don't think this match was like amazing or anything, but I do appreciate that like Naniwa was just like fuck you. Like if you want to chant boring, like I'll make this fucking boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know this was a. Oh, go ahead, Chad. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
I just thought this was a really fun, good little match. Like it
Mm-hmm.
again, like a lot of all these matches. Like, was this like a classic match? Like, no, but it was all very good.
Yeah.
Like, and Hamada had a great part in that. Like he was really crisp. Like
His
and
tornado
this.
DDT was really nice in this match.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, the finish did get a little bit botched up there, didn't it?
It was the so it seemed like the finish was supposed to be the tornado DDT, and then he went up and did like a top rope Frankensteiner and got the 3 count. But it seemed like the ref counted it, but he was also like waved him off. It's like like, almost like he won or you already won. I counted 3.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure because it's like it seemed like Naniwa like got his shoulder up. I don't know.
I think the ref.
yeah.
I think the timekeeper might have fucked up
Maybe.
because they were real fast on the ring there, and I'm not sure if the ref actually like. Because sometimes the ref will do the 3 count, be like no, it's fine, but like the bell, like the timekeeper like rang that bell real quick because they were.
I think we can say that something got screwed up for the finish, even if we can't put a finger on what exactly.
Yeah. The ref went with
this
it.
was this was a fun match, I thought. Mata looked great. And at this point he was probably like he was like 47, 48, I think.
Yeah, it was like 98.
Older. Yeah.
He had been 48, yeah. Probably 47, 48.
And here's a guy like offline, you said it, Brad, that if he had a little more size to him, probably would have been like a big star.
He was 6 inches taller because I looked it up. It said he was 5'6". I think that's a little shooty. I think he was more like 5'5".
Mm-hmm.
But he's like
he's like a Jonathan Gresham.
Yeah, no, I mean
Yeah.
he's a giant compared to Mr. Top 20. But
number 10, he's the top
but
10
even
of the
even like but even like him versus like Jonathan Gresham. And this is not meant to like crap on Jonathan Gresham. Like when you see like Gran Hamada with working other guys that are bigger, he doesn't look out of place because he still has some size to him. The problem with like
Yeah.
Jonathan Gresham at his height is he's so slight. Like even though you can tell like he's in shape, like he's just so small. Like when he was doing that program with like Bully Ray, it looked like Bully Ray was like wrestling a child.
Well, yeah, Bully Ray is a bigger guy.
But like
and Jonathan Gresham is built. He's
But
he
he's
got
not
himself
like
very muscular.
But like if you put Gran Hamada in there with Bully Ray, it wouldn't look as ridiculous because the thing is, Jonathan Gresham is in great shape, but like he's kind of like Sean Waltman. Like when they asked Sean Waltman like, "Did you try steroids?" Like, yeah, it didn't do a damn thing for me. Like he's in shape, but like he doesn't. He's got a small frame.
I've said before with wrestling,
He just lost the
and much
genetic
like with,
lottery when it came to having like a wrestler physique.
much like with a lot of things in life, like people, there is a genetic component to this that you can overcome to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And people like again, we talk like again, I think Shad and I are like he's probably our favorite, but Sting is. Now he's like 65, I think. You know, I've seen recent photos of him. It's like maybe look at a little bit of a paunch, a little bit of a panza going on. It's like you're 65. You're like you've retired. Like,
You've earned it, dude.
Yeah, you can put on a few extra pounds if you want to, but that's a guy. It's like he shouldn't have been able in his early 60s to be doing some of the stuff he was doing, and he did because he was a genetic like freak.
Yeah, it's like when you see Luger. It's like Luger probably did some had some aids there, but like the thing is like even if you're using steroids, like to get that body there is a genetic element to there. Like I couldn't just start doing steroids and lifting weights today and have that body. Like it's
He had a frame to support it too.
Yeah. And even guys who I think haven't even been caught doing performance enhancing drugs and probably also diet and work out a lot, like Randy Orton.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy Orton has even like made jokes before where I think this is like a few years back, but he even made some guy like someone commented maybe on social media or Twitter or whatever. He's like about like, oh, they're not going to use you as much or they're not going to do whatever. And he's like, oh, like Randy Orton commented like quipped. He's like, oh, I love that because I don't have to like work out as much. I can start getting fat a little bit. But if you look at Randy Orton, like Randy Orton's physique like he's very tall.
Yeah.
Not like 6'10" tall, but he's tall.
Yeah.
And he's in very great shape.
And he's not lanky like he's on the. So I think what's interesting about Orton, the body, he's slighter than I would say your typical WWE guy, but he's not like uber lanky. Like he has enough of a frame that he can look like a wrestler. Like I think like a great difference for Jonathan Gresham, like as a counterpoint, is Rey Mysterio Jr., who is also his height, but Rey Mysterio has a much larger frame.
Yeah.
Than Gresham does.
The reason I brought up Randy Orton though is that Randy Orton does have a leaner physique.
Yeah.
He's very built. Again, like it's not. I don't believe it's entirely through like an enhancement. I think it's like, but he's the sort. It's like you will have muscles, but you're not going to be like, I'm Scott Steiner, like the absurd, like biceps, whatever. Like he's a leaner physique, or someone like obviously wasn't the level of star, but like Jack Swagger, tall guy, like in shape, but a weird frame kind of in that he's lankier, taller, like thin, like is he a guy who's strong? Like Jack Swagger, I think is probably like ridiculously strong, but smaller. Like in Claudio Castagnoli, like another guy, genetic lottery. Like tall guy, like he's like what, 6'4", 6'5"?
Yeah.
And muscles upon like not like again, not Scott Steiner. Like
no, but here's the thing:
a guy who's ridiculously in shape.
Here's the thing:
they're not puppy, they're functional.
Here's the thing with Claudio: you do not appreciate how muscular he is until you see him in person. You're like, oh shit, your muscles have muscles. Like,
but that's the thing. You ever like, this is a weird analogy, but you go in like you visit a farm or something, and you see like you look over like there's the horse, and the horse has like muscles upon muscles. It's like the horse is not working out in the fucking gym. Like
Yeah.
That's what Moxley calls Claudio. Is he calls him a human horse?
yeah, that's the thing. Like Claudio clearly has like he has he hit the genetic lottery. It's like you could literally like not work out for like 6 months. You probably still would be like have like the incredible physique. So
Or like
my point is
or
there's
like,
a genetic component to all this.
or like even like let's go a different route. Like someone like Mark Henry or Big Show, they can probably just look at a Big Mac and gain 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna struggle with their weight all the time. Because I mean, even
Well-
Big Show got pretty built for a while there because
Yeah.
actually Cena fat shamed him into getting into shape because he said like because Cena had said something about that and he's like, well, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna cram it right in your fucking face.
He had said, Cena was like, oh, I'm getting cut. He goes, well, you gonna get cut, Paul? And Paul's like, nobody wants to see a giant that looks like that. And he goes, yeah, nobody would they, Paul? And then it's just like, you little son of a bitch, which is why he went after it. And I mean, on one hand, good for him. If he hit a goal, he had a goal, he hit the goal, good for him. On the other hand, dude, when you're that big, is it that necessary? Probably not. Now, on the other hand, Big Bill, rocking it.
Yeah.
Oh, Big Bill is in fantastic shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, Sean Waltman's a great one because they said, did you try steroids? Like, yeah, didn't do a damn thing
Didn't
for
do
me.
anything.
See, I probably, if I had been on that path, I probably would have been like Waltman, except bigger and longer. Because at my best, I had more like a boxer physique. It was lean, and it wasn't like big arms, but they were they were strong enough. But it wasn't about lifting; it was about throwing punches and stuff. So
Yeah.
I probably would have been in a similar vein. Thank you for being with us, Maurice. Have a good night.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, there is that genetic element though. Like sometimes you like even like Brock Lesnar, like that's just there is a genetic element despite what you're doing. Like I think when people get into the steroids thing, they forget that you do have to like there has to be like an underlying ability to put that muscle on.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed these. Like I thought Gran Hamada was a lot of fun. I feel bad that I didn't have more to say about him. But like I said, like the Los Brazos match is a great one. Is like you're talking about all this stuff the Brazos did, and then you realize like, oh, that's because Hamada was like giving them all that stuff.
Can I do the quick story I wanted to do?
Yeah.
Just as a kind of speaking to Hamada's like character, Hamada, like we said earlier, was a big part of Michinoku Pro. That's how I was originally exposed to him, and that's what I mostly knew him as.
ECW Barely Legal was, I think, the first time I saw him in a match.
Right. So Michinoku Pro started in 1993. Obviously, if you're someone like me or the rest of us, you became aware of Michinoku Pro like 4 or 5 years later when they associated with ECW. But in the start of it, in early 1993, they just started out. They had some of the guys that we know who become legends in their own right, like Great Sasuke. They were doing shows, but it was not initially super popular. It was slow start, and he's written a Great Sasuke wrote an autobiography, which some guys like actually saying like he's translating. I don't think it's been translated into English so far, but this is the story that Great Sasuke told in his book. In April 1993, so like 1 month after Michinoku Pro had started, they were doing a show, and he tells a story about how Gran Hamada gave an inspirational speech to the Michinoku Pro locker room. Great Sasuke said that they entered the venue. This is about April 1993, about a month after Michinoku Pro started. He goes, we entered the venue around 5 o'clock on the day of the show, but there was not a single soul around the gymnasium. He's like, that's strange, I thought, and I checked the ticket sales only to find that there was not even 10 tickets sold. Like Shad, you've done like independent stuff. Like 10 tickets is like,
I've had shows like that. It
oof.
sucks.
Yeah. So Great Sasuke was like, this is bad, I thought. For a moment, my spine shivered. I immediately ordered the young wrestlers to drive the advertising car, but our efforts were in vain, and only 85 people attended that day.
No,
Looking around the venue,
Can I interrupt for a second? He really kind of buried the lead there because I was like, wow, like that's kind of impressive that you only had like less than 10 people and you somehow scrambled and crammed like 85 in there, like day of. Like I was like, that's kind of.
I mean, that's almost a 90%.
Yeah.
Like, well, you increase it like, well, more than 90%.
Yeah.
That's you increase it like a lot. But still under 100. Like,
Yeah,
I get
that's
you're like
rough.
morose. But Sasuke says, looking around the venue through the curtains from behind the waiting room, I saw that it was completely empty. Ah, this is no good. I felt hopeless as I looked at the deserted venue. Moreover, the attendance for the April series was far below the target of 500 at every venue. Was Michinoku Pro Wrestling just a dream after all? Was local pro wrestling impossible in Japan after all? I felt so helpless. And this is the story he's telling kind of does speak to like Hamada and the character that he had. And again, at this point, Hamada would have been probably like 43. So, and he started at 72. So he would have been like a 20 plus year veteran.
Yeah.
Satsuki says, when I turned to the waiting room, the faces of the wrestlers were still gloomy. It seemed as if the deserted atmosphere at the venue was being transmitted directly to the wrestlers. I also lost my energy after seeing the empty venue, so I told Hamada, the oldest of the wrestlers, Mr. Hamada, there is only 85 people in the attendance today. Let's finish the match early and go home. The wrestlers around him responded, I agree, let's close up shop early today. Then Hamada suddenly turned grim and yelled, you idiots! You guys, you have to work even harder at times like this. Hustle harder than usual and give it your all in every match. Give it your all. It's out of the question to slack off at a time like this. Because if you take away that pride from us wrestlers, what will we have left? The gloomy atmosphere in the waiting room was instantly filled with tension. I'll fight with all my might, even if it's only one spectator. That's the pride of a professional wrestler. We're always fighting with our lives on the line. It doesn't matter how many spectators there are. Even if there are a few spectators, professionals are the ones who risk their lives. That's why I'm going to fight with all my might today, too. Hearing Hamada's words, everyone woke up in a start. So, I mean, obviously it's a grim situation. Less than 100 people show up to your show. But here you are, a 20-year veteran. Like, he's seen a lot at this point. And Chad,
Yeah.
you know, you did wrestling. It's like he's like, fuck it, guys. Like, I've done this. Like, only 85 people, you want to be home, go home early? Like, you idiot. You guys are idiots. Like, this is now you need to work harder.
But
If you want to build
because
something, you got to make it work.
the thing is, like, the logic there, though, is like, okay, so you have 85 people there. If you put on a shit show, they might not come back. But if you put on a really great show for those 85 people, they might go and tell their friends. And
People.
then you come back
Yeah.
next time, there might be 170 people next time.
Yeah.
I had a show kind of like that once. Like the worst show I ever had only had 5 people there, but it was July and the air conditioning in the venue had gone out. So it just sucked all around.
I went to an ROH show in the dead of July. It was 98 degrees. The building did not have air conditioning. It
Yeah.
was fucking awful.
But I went to go do this show, and it was at this high school in the middle of nowhere, and we're all sitting in the area we were using as a locker room, and they're like, ain't nobody here, and we all kind of look at each other, and we're like, well, shit. And then right at bell time, people rolled into the parking lot, and it's like, all right, let's go do this. And they wanted me to put over this particular guy that's like, no, we want you to put him over. Folks around here like him. And then the guy running the show leans over to me and goes, he ain't real good, so whatever you can do, try and get this to work. So we did, and then at the end of the night we had a battle royal because why the hell not? And we had the goofiest time in this stupid battle royal. Everybody just kind of farting around doing stupid stuff in this battle royal. I was like, what the hell, man? If these folks are here, let's give them a show.
Yeah.
You know?
The one Chikara show I went to, they did like an encore battle royal at the end, and it was the Estonian Thunder Frog at one point, but I think he was just Farmer Frog at the time, and he got eliminated, and I had a front row ticket for this, and he was laying on me, selling that he had been thrown out of the battle royal. So I had a sweaty man in a frog mask, like laying with his back and his head on my knee, pretty much. And then the guy next to me had Oleg the Usurper jumped on him after he did this rolling senton and like screamed in his face that he got him. It was funny.
Awesome.
They also it was in this like civic center, and there were these low hanging lights. You can see it on if you look up the show up from Columbus, but they did a superplex spot. And they kicked one of the light fixtures out, so they came down with a suplex spot. And this whole light fixture just like crashed into the ring with them.
Yikes.
So they keep doing the match, and Bryce is like trying like to get all this like light shit out of the ring. They didn't fall on anyone, thankfully, but it was interesting.
Still, yeah.
Yeah. That might have cut into the profits a bit because they damaged one light.
A little bit.
And then there were these kids were watching, because it was like there was like this big window, and these kids were watching. It was like on this campus, and Chuck Taylor saw it during their match. He went out and he screamed at them, and these kids like fled in terror across this campus from him. It was funny. But I think we can call that a show if you guys don't have any more thoughts. I enjoyed this a lot. Like I said, Gran Hamada is an interesting worker. Like I said, I feel bad I didn't have a lot to say about him, but like he just did like
He was good. He wasn't ultra flashy, but he didn't need to be. Like he was a good hand.
Yeah.
Like and Dave Meltzer has some positive words about him, and it's like it's true. It's like there's not a lot. There are guys like this around nowadays, but there also aren't. Like guys who they weren't like mega stars, but also like they were just really, really good at what they did and were great utility workers and added a lot. Like, and again, he was a big reason why Michinoku Pro is still a thing. Like they still run shows. I just checked a minute ago.
they're on
They've run like at least a handful of shows on this year alone.
They're on Wrestle Universe.
Oh, really? Like I actually have, for those who don't have Wrestle Universe, like you should get Wrestle Universe.
It's like
a steal.
$9. You get DDT, Noah, M Pro, Marigold, Tokyo Joshi Pro,
Gan Pro, I think.
Gan Pro, yeah.
It's multiple promotions for like $10.
Oh, and
Less than $10.
Sendai Girls is on there now too.
Oh yeah. Like you could literally watch a show
I think
every day.
Yeah, there's like a new show every day.
Yeah. For like less than $10. It's like a ridiculous amount of content for what you get.
Yeah.
But
extreme value.
This is a teaser that is going to happen this year. I cannot promise when, but Matt and I are going to force Shad to watch a Choco Pro show for the sake of this show. I might do the one. I might go back and do the one that when Bryce worked it. Have you seen like the Choco Pro setup, Shad?
No, but I always get worried when the line is, "We're gonna make him go watch," and I'm immediately like, "Oh."
Okay,
no.
so think of it. So it is a wrestling promotion. They have wrestling matches, but it's like a single room with gym mats, and then there's kind of like
I saw a Minoru Suzuki match like that was like that.
Yeah, so that's kind of what it is. It's got like it's crammed full of like maybe I don't know, what would you say, Matt? Like 20 people maybe to watch it.
Yeah.
It's just it's really stupid, but it's charming. Like it's like one of those things where you'll probably watch it and go like, this isn't for me, but I can see like even Joe Lanza, as much of a curmudgeon as he is, says, I don't like Choco Pro, but I understand why people like it. It's just kind of charming.
I make no promises.
Yeah, it was founded by Emi Sakura.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, its main star is Mai Saruga,
Yeah.
who has appeared on AEW television actually, amongst other places.
They kind of have like a low key this year. They've kind of had a low key relationship with AEW because, like I said, Bryce did a show there. Emmy's been a pretty decent regular on there lately.
Yeah.
Someone else from AEW popped in there too, but I don't remember who it was. Oh, who was
Well,
it?
I mean, a fan of theirs, who she hasn't appeared obviously, but a fan is no less than Mercedes Moné. Like, so
yeah?
it's quite
Oh.
possible you could get like Mercedes versus
How
Mai.
did it come out that she likes Choco Pro?
I think I don't know. I think she like on Twitter or something like social media, like she liked something they did, or like she's taking a picture with some of the talent from there. I don't know.
If you don't,
That-
so if you're wondering what Choco Pros are, you're curious. So Choco Pro has a YouTube page. They put all their shows out on YouTube. I think they run about once a week, and the shows are like about 45 minutes to an hour 20. I'd say most weeks,
Mm.
and they're just goofy.
They're goofy. They're fun. And you get a lot of DDT talent on the show.
Yeah,
Like I think one of the recent shows they had Antonia Honda, who has been with DDT for like 20 plus years, probably.
yeah. He did the
Uh,
he did the Tokyo Joshi Pro Battle Royal at the end of the year last year.
Yeah. Their big star, of course, is Emmy and
May
Mai
Mai.
Saruga,
May. I don't know.
May, who is totally not May Saint Michelle
No, they're two different
from
people.
Bishi Ikigan.
It's kind of like how Serpentico and John Cruz are not the same person.
Not the same person, not at all.
Not the same. No. Not at all.
They made a joke on his Hey W episode about that. I think.
Yeah, but and they made a joke about you mentioned the rock and roll on AEW,
Yeah.
and what happens is RJ said he's just sitting there and he's looking at his papers. He goes, "What's your opinion on glass tables?"
I know.
That was the best.
And Ricky Ward's like, I'd run.
They had a moment where they kind of looked at each other, like, "Wait, what the hell?" And then they figured it out.
I
in
like
the context of AEW, that is a wild question, considering who created this sleaze thread.
You know what's funny though is knowing that the wrestlers like know of that thread enough to like be self-aware about it. But I was gonna say, you know who has a really underrated AEW episode, especially for character work, is the Hurt Syndicate.
I watched that one. I didn't have as much fun watching that one because, yes, it was in character for them, but I'm like,
Well, I like that Bobby Lashley was like the affable, like nice one, and then they said something, and Lashley just like gets this big smile on his face, like points to like, I'm the nice one.
yeah.
And then like
But-
MVP like just breaking out into this like long rant about the Bourne Identity books and how this series wasn't true to it or not, and then like RJ's like, yeah, I agree. He's like, I'm not talking to you.
The thing that bothered me is I like it more whenever I don't like it when people make their gimmick to be mean to RJ because it's like, man, it's like you're kicking a puppy, dude.
Lashley was nice to him.
Maybe it's an annoying puppy that bites your ankles and pees on the floor, but you're still kicking a puppy. Like that's not fun to watch.
I thought Bobby was nice to him because that was the kind of the joke was Bobby Lashley was like the nice one.
It was, but even with that, it's still.
Where's another one I watched that I thought was really funny, and I can't remember which one it was now. It was a newer one. Glacier was pretty funny.
Yeah,
Glacier,
I like that one because Glacier was having a great time.
Glacier was kind of ruining it though. He's having too much fun.
I enjoyed the fact that that Glacier had a good time with it.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes they come on and they like don't quite get it.
Yeah, there's some of those where they don't really seem to go with it, but then that's not been as common lately.
No, but
so.
like, because like sometimes like Steamboat, you could tell quite kind of wasn't quite getting the joke, but he knew enough. He's like, oh, well, I don't get it, but I'll play along. I'll just, I'll just roll.
He
With
just treated it like a regular interview.
And then he kind of like got into it when they were doing like the heel lines. Like then he kind of got the joke when they did that. He's like, oh, okay, like I get, okay,
Mm-hmm.
My favorite though is still the Minoru Suzuki one, or the running gag where all the Japanese talent mentioned Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah, he didn't like anything that RJ said, and he's like, "Who's your favorite character on Wings? I don't know what else to ask you." And like Minoru's in his face, Tony Shalhoub.
My favorite part about the Minoru one, and I agreed with him, he should have killed RJ for it, was when he's fucking livid at him and he's bitching at him for having no socks on with his moccasins. And he's like pointing at him, he's like, what the fuck is it? Like, you could just tell he's mad about the no socks. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're right about that one.
It's a look. I don't like the look, but
well, here's RJ knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
He knows that he's doing his own gimmick there. And so, and part of his gimmick is that annoying know-it-all, like, wannabe college reporter kind of thing.
The Ishii one's funny too, where he's just asleep and they wake him up and he just chops him and walks off. The Japanese talent are always funny on that. Shibata brought up Tony Shalhoub too. That's like...
Yeah. I think that's the running gag for the Japanese talent. I don't think it came up in Mina's, but in any event.
I think it didn't because Mina speaks English too well.
Yeah, just enjoy Hey EW. It's a fun time.
Yeah, and you never know who's going to pop up. They've really brought some... like the Rock and Roll Express were really fun on that.
And the Serpentico one was fun to watch too.
Yeah, and he throws his confetti right in RJ's face, which is funny. But that is it for this week. Thank you for joining us as always. I don't know what next week's going to be. We might get back to the USWA. I think we actually have the time for that. But we'll see. And thank you for joining us as always. And we will catch you next time.